across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Apologies for the voice. Seemed to come down with one of those, you know, summer colds. These sickly southerners, what are we going to do with them? Anyway, I hope you'll bear with me. 3 minutes past 10 o'clock is the time. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you so much for your company. If you do miss anything from the show, don't forget to go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, well, we're going to be talking in advance about Andy Burnham's first big speech as the, well, let's face it, Prime Minister in waiting. 20th of July is the day we expect him to visit the King in Buckingham Palace and then become our next Prime Minister. But currently, he's still just a front runner. So he's got a big speech in Manchester where he's going to take no questions from journalists, we are told. How's that going to work out for him? And he's going to be talking about his 10-year plan to transform the economy, preparing to boost the economy through devolution, giving more powers to local regional mayors and local councils, taking power and money away from Whitehall. Gosh, where have we heard that before? We'll be talking all about that. Also going to talk about ordinary members of the public, you and me. We'll replace judges in deciding asylum appeals under reforms to speed up the deportation of illegal migrants. I mean, I'm happy to sit on that panel and I can do it very, very quickly. I'll put my headphones in and I'll just say, no, 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 no. So how quick was that? We just got rid of a whole bunch of them and it only took a moment. Also, we're going to be talking about Shabana Mahmood. He's been in right old battles with one of our own Home Office ministers all weekend. She's pledging to ramp up the detention of illegal migrants as the number of foreign criminals avoiding deportation has hit a record of almost 20,000. But they've just accidentally, Labour, just tiny little thing just slipped into their plans at the Home Office for people who do arrive, largely men of fighting age, on Channel migrant boats illegally into this country. They've basically gone back on the law, which was changed by the Tory party when they last in office, to allow those people to become eligible to be British citizens. Absolutely bonkers insane. And whenever you think there's anyone in that Labour government that is vaguely sane on this stuff, just look at the small print. That's all I can say. I want to hear from you. As always, you can ask and talk to us and give your tuppence worth on any and every subject under the sun that we are talking about. But crucially, in an hour and a half's time, Andy Burnham is going to be making his first big set speech, laying out, well, you know, the small matter of what he plans to do when he becomes our next Prime Minister. So this 10-year plan to transform the economy, transferring powers and money from Westminster to the north and elsewhere, he says it's going to generate good growth in every postcode. And wow, let's hope it does. But I'd love to hear your reaction to that. No specifics yet that we're aware of about how he'd actually do that and how someone deciding something in Hull means that there would be growth, but someone deciding something in Whitehall means there isn't. Particularly love to hear from you if you are calling in from many of our great northern cities and many other great cities around the country, Bristol and otherwise, other places who would actually much rather have a bit more devolution. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text on 87222, or you can get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls, as you know, are charged at the national rate and text cost one standard network rate message. Delighted to say joining me in the studio, and if it all goes a bit badly with the voice today, Claire Pissell, former Conservative government advisor, will be forced to step into the hot seat. Luckily, we're both wearing orange. You won't notice the difference at all. Claire, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. I must say, by the way, I will do my best to stay in the chair because I'm one of my guests in the 12-hour. You won't want to miss this, by the way. We've got this new conversion practices bill, the details of which were announced at the end of last week, which basically could see it's about tackling gay conversion therapy in this country, which, by the way, isn't a thing. But they want to include trans in it. It's been a big row about it for the last few years. But the idea is, in it, extraordinarily, that anybody who basically doesn't affirm, who aggressively, not aggressively, but just like, you know, in some way, quote, abuses a child by not affirming their gender identity, a poor, troubled trans child, well, there's no such thing as a trans child who thinks they're trans and doesn't allow them to get puberty blockers even, so whether that's a therapist or even a parent of one of these children could, as the law, as it looks like it from the draft bill, could face up to 5 years behind bars. Extraordinary stuff. We're going to be talking to Helen Webberley. She runs a company based, interestingly, out of Singapore, where they do supply puberty blockers to children in this country. I'm going to talk to her about that. That may be quite a feisty one, that one. Do tune in for that in the 12 hour. As a Claire Pistol, I'm sure you'll have your tuppence worth to give on that one as well, as all sensible people do. So this big Andy Burnham speech, I mean, the first thing that struck me, before we go into any details, is a 10-year plan. Yeah, Keir Starmer had one of those. How's that working out for him?
Yes, I wonder how many resets Andy Burnham's got planned as well, because he's called himself, he's the circuit breaker. And where have we heard that before? I think those were in the COVID times. It's not got good connotations.
Definitely not good
circuit
connotations.
breaker. He's not taking any media questions either.
There's the giveaway. I mean, come on. Also, how to put the backs up of a load of journos who largely have given you pretty nice coverage. They just want some detail. But here's the thing. It's still being treated technically as some sort of election contest. We don't have another candidate yet. The nominations don't even open until next week, do they? And then we've got until the 17th of July before they close, at which point, if he's the only contender, he's not even officially a contender yet. And then he becomes Labour leader on the Friday. And on the Monday, the 20th, he would go to the King, and then he would be the next Prime Minister. So we'd be well shot of Keir Starmer there, so I'm well chuffed with that. But again, this is a man who, interestingly, was not even an MP being elected under the Labour manifesto in 2024. But we're told that, no, he absolutely is... he's sticking by the fiscal rules, doesn't really know what they are, but he's going to stick by those. He hasn't really got a choice, because you can't... I mean, how much more can you tax? Who else is there left to tax in this country? And you can't borrow anymore, so that's going to limit your spending. But they're darn well going to try.
They are going to try, and some of the rumours coming out before this speech are the changes that he would make to certain taxation, which would disproportionately affect those people in the south, to then send that money to the north. So he's doing his little Robin Hood moment, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's coming down from Manchester to save us all and take that money back. And you just think, well, how is that going to work if you want growth in all areas, but you're going to tax people in the south more?
But also
Why?
there's this idea. OK, lots of sudden, London. Look, London. We are a massively centralised country. Even France, which is a hugely centralised country. Not all of the sort of the power base and the money is in Paris. Certainly in Germany, I mean, it's massively more disparate. But the reality is, I mean, part of that is down to the fact that we have been a nation state for much longer, continuous nation state for a lot of these countries. But that is where the money. But that's also where the city is, which, by the way, pays for pretty much everything. I mean, here we go. And there are lots of very wealthy people. Look, I'm not far from my home, and this is typical London. There are homes that cost 50 million quid. Not even like family. 50 within walking distance of my home. There are also council blocks, really, really rotten council estates as well, equal distance away. That is London. There is a lot of poverty. I don't like the word poverty, relative poverty. There's lots of people not living great lives in this. So the idea that, the streets of London are paved with gold is ridiculous. But also there's an element where, a lot of people who want to make their living, they go to London. And there's a very strong argument that actually we want our great cities, whether you're in Bristol or you're in Liverpool or Sheffield or Leeds or Manchester or Birmingham, all these great cities, and in Scotland and Wales as well, that actually people, if they want to make good in life, they want to make money, they want to be a success, they want to do an amazing job and be successful in their career, they don't need to move to London to do it and take that income and that expertise with it. So that I'm all in favour of that. I'm just not quite sure how giving mayors powers and more money from the centre is going to differ. Talk about having a number 10, basically a number 10 in the north, not moving the north, not moving the whole of number 10 to the north. So much this has been... The BBC did it, didn't they? The Office for National Statistics did. They moved to, I think, Newport, didn't they?
Yeah, they
and
did.
do you know what they did? Basically, a load of their staff just left. So their top experts just left. Why? Because they didn't want to move to Newport. They were living in London.
Yeah.
And their families were in London. And what a surprise. People, particularly, your wives and husbands don't just go, oh, OK, I'll just move now then. I mean, they just don't do that. You don't uproot your whole family. Because, I mean, this is usually just a way of, basically, you pay a massive cost to transfer a load of people from London to another city. So you don't get new jobs. No. But also, this is just another layer of bureaucracy, isn't it? I'm not quite sure how that changes anything for local people.
It doesn't. This is renaming of departments, it's shuffling them around, it's giving them a new sort of impetus, but it doesn't change anything. And we've been here before. Rishi Sunak moved parts of Number 10 to, I think it was York, there was a campus there, or Darlington.
And the Treasury's being moved in
and
parts.
parts of the Treasury have been moved. And you just think, does it actually make a difference?
It's a gimmick.
If those people are making a decision there rather than making a decision here, what difference does that make? Are you going to grow the economy just because of a geographical position?
But also all of this stuff, I mean, again, to another layer of bureaucracy, more reform, which takes years and years and just creates a load more public sector jobs. I mean, local areas will love it. Yeah, we're just going to get a whole load of more public sector jobs and people we can't get rid of. You know, brilliant. They could, but you actually need, so when he says we're going to deliver growth, how? You know, deliver growth by... I mean, I would, for instance, you know, OK, HS2 should have been built already and it should have been on schedule and on budget, and all the nonsense stuff that stopped it from being that, you know, people just on the make. But, you know, I would have, you know, if you're not going to spend the money on HS2, even if you are spending money on HS2, your top priority shouldn't be 20 minutes shorter journey to Birmingham from London. Yeah. It should be all of these major train routes between the great cities of the North and the Midlands. That would have been a much bigger priority. You need, you know, and again, one of the things he's done in Manchester when he was, you know, the B line, the buses, a good bus service, a reliable bus service, so people can get to work. You can't get a job. I mean, I know people who live in, you know, in Wiltshire, and you know, and they talk about how, you know, local people, you know, if you haven't got a car and you can't afford a car because you haven't got a job, these young people, you think, well, why can't you just get a bus? Because there's only one bus a day each direction. So if your job starts at 9 and the bus comes at 9, you can't do that job. And you can't get home. You can't do a restaurant job in town. You know, you think, well, why have you chosen to move to a rural area? Because it's the only place they can afford. And you're into these catch-22 things. So there's some really practical things that do make a difference to people's lives, but I'm not sure any of this. There's nothing. I mean, there's nothing. Look, Tories have called this shuffling power between politicians. Reform have said this is all talk, no action, which I think is perfectly valid criticism for both. Tories, Kemi Badenoch is currently giving a speech herself. She's been talking about how we have a caretaker Prime Minister and says she's got her own tests for Andy Burnham in terms of the economy. But there's nothing in this about how you deliver growth. Jobs, I mean, jobs. That's what people... First and foremost, people need a job. There has been some talk about him cutting that national insurance hike for employers. That would be a good thing. There's nothing about cutting welfare spending. I doubt very much if he's going to even try and do that. Nothing about funding for defence. John Healey apparently has agreed... not John Healey, the new one, Dan Jarvis, has agreed a deal, and it's going to be published probably by the end of this week ahead of a NATO summit next week. But he's got an extra billion. Or $1.5 billion, so it's up to almost 15 billion. But we know that not all of that is even real money. I mean, that doesn't touch the sides of even staying still. There's nothing about tackling mass immigration, legal or illegal. So if you look at, you know, and there'll be nothing about dumping net zero. So if you're not tackling any of those key things, I'm not sure that anything you do makes a blind bit of difference.
It doesn't, and running a major city as a mayor is very different to then running the country with all of the other additional problems that you have. He's never had to consider immigration previously. Foreign policy, defence spending and education. And some of the noises around education are very sensible, with putting technical courses on par with people who've got university degrees.
Well, who hasn't been saying that for 20 years?
And we keep going around the reiterations of apprenticeship schemes, and they don't take off, largely because the employers are being taxed to the hilt and then just not going to enter into these schemes because they can't afford
it. The terrible thing also is an awful lot of these youngsters, actually, that's why they end up being NEETs, 1 in 7, not in education, employment or training, is actually one of the reasons why they've not got decent GCSEs and are not academic, isn't actually, they're not thick, a lot of these kids are very, but they've basically not been focused, parenting, the schools have failed them. And we have got that report. It's by former Education Secretary, the first Education Secretary, I think, who went to a state comp, which was, I remember it being a very big thing at the time. This is Estelle Morris, now Baroness Morris. She's co-authored this report about white working-class children being failed by the education system. Because everyone's gone on for years about, you know, Asian children, black children being failed. Well, actually, you know, if you're an Indian child or a Chinese child, you're getting, on average, again, it's all on average, way better results than even white kids. Black children, again, if your family's from Nigeria, your kids are probably, on average, doing very well. If you think Afro-Caribbean community, then they're probably always at the bottom of the pile. Bangladeshi, Pakistani children near the bottom of the pile. But who's at the very, very bottom? White working class kids being failed in schools across the country, and basically saying we need to do something about it. I mean, another report, but again, another report telling us what we already know.
But also, I don't think it's as simple as saying it's the education system that's failing them, because the education is for a certain amount of hours per day, a certain amount of weeks per year. Where are the children the rest of the time? They're with the parents. And what do we know about Nigerian parents, Indian, Chinese parents? Jewish parents. They make their children do their homework. They make them turn up to school on time and
they're largely
achieve.
Intact family, the family unit, dad's in the home. I mean, statistically, there are very, very different outcomes for children whose dads are not in the home. It's as simple as that.
Yes, it is. And
dads matter.
It is. I was a single parent for 9 years. I had to take on both of those roles. And it's really, really tough. But you have to make sure that your child is doing the best that they can. And if not, that is a failure on you.
He's turned out all right, yours. I tell you what I thought was stunning this morning. 1 in 10 parents think that children's behaviour is a job for schools, not for parents. I'm going to tell you right now.
Newsflash.
Those are exactly the parents whose kids I want to give a right hand to in any restaurant, or where they are racing around. And you know what? And they'll be going, oh, it's all they think estate parents. No, be a load of sodding middle-class liberal parents who think little Johnny and little Jacinta, you know, expressing themselves when they run around screaming, well, here's me expressing myself. Sit the hell down and shut the hell up. I mean, I say, I'm a 1950s parent. It's worked out very, very well indeed. It didn't do us any harm. Yeah, I mean, there's your problem. I mean, there's your problem. And it's fascinating how many people I meet, and again, from very different backgrounds. I'm not talking about, you know, everyone's got a big professional job in London, people living... I've got lots of friends. My husband's got lots of friends, you know, all around the country. Not one of their kids has struggled to get a job. You know, whether it's a washing up job in a cafe like my daughter did for a couple of years, whether it's you know, just any temp work, bar work, any of that stuff. Not one of them has struggled to get a job. You know, okay, it might have, it might take them like a few weeks. They couldn't just walked outside and go, oh, hello, can I have a job, please? But they've managed to get work because they've got a work ethic, because they've got the right attitude. They know how to talk to adults. They're respectful. They understand about turning up on time, turning up every time, all of that stuff. It's amazing how much the parents play a role in that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm always the one making sure he gets up. You've got clean clothes.
No. I'm not making sure of that after a certain age. That is now your job.
I do that for my husband as well.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I think it's probably just a me thing.
It's just, yeah, I mean, leave him alone, for goodness sake. Look, there's another story here I want to talk about, which is, according to the latest reports, the public, ordinary members of the public, are going to get to decide asylum appeals. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, who a lot of people are saying, she's vying for a job with Andy Burnham, and she's having this big spat with Mike Tapp, her Home Office Minister, who just outrageously just did an article without her approval or Downing Street's approval, sort of discussing a policy. Absolutely a sackable offence, but the Prime Minister's totally undermined her. When I say the Prime Minister, I mean Keir Starmer. He's still there. But ordinary members of the public will replace judges in deciding asylum appeals, so magistrate-style reforms to speed up the deportation of illegal migrants. We're going to recruit hundreds of people from various different backgrounds. What they mean is they're going to have enough people from each different demographic, and there'll be some trans people, etc., etc. They're going to be trained as adjudicators. Now, you'd think the asylum is going to get one chance to appeal. They can't do, 20 different ones. And they're going to start hearing appeals by the end of next year, the Home Office said. This is part of the Immigration Asylum Bill. It's going to be published tomorrow. I think there's going to be a lot in the papers on that tomorrow, which was sweeping reforms, trying to make it quicker and easier to deport failed asylum seekers and foreign criminals, bearing in mind a record 20,000 foreign criminals have avoided deportation. And thousands of deported migrants come back to Britain within years. Because even after they've been kicked out of the country. And the most extraordinary revelation that Labour has secretly dropped the ban on small boat migrants, so the Channel migrants, the ones who are turning up in those dinghies, and other illegal immigrants. So I think it was 2023, the law was changed. These people could not be eligible at any point ever to be British citizens, no matter how long they were in the country, if they've arrived illegally. And they basically quietly dropped that, and they'll now be eligible to become British citizens. I mean, this is all properly insane.
It is, and there's been no scrutiny over that. That was dropped really, really quietly under a whole heap of other news.
As a minor
vain
change.
hope, yes, that nobody would notice. And I've been at the Home Office and we made minor changes and hopes for the best on a Friday. But it always comes back to bite you because the public are not going to countenance somebody who shouldn't be here in the first place, then being allowed to be a British citizen. But why?
Exactly.
How does this work?
I mean, exactly. And again, it's like, well, they had no choice of being a boat migrant. They were this proof they were trafficked. But we've seen the proof that's come through. You, having worked at the Home Office, you've actually been in the office when the ministers you were advising were, the Tories, would actually be making decisions about some individuals.
Yes, some really quite serious cases came across the desk of the immigration minister and you have to sign them off. And let me tell you, these are not soft, fluffy individuals who've had a really hard time and have been trafficked. These are some hardened criminals, fraudsters, Class A drugs, paedophiles, you name it, they are in there, weapons offences and things like that. So these are not who you want living next door to you, and I don't care how much of a story they'd spin. I'm always of the view, you know, if they did live next door to the people making the decisions, they might change. But bearing in mind, you think, oh, this is good, we can go on an asylum panel and we can get trained up, sort of like almost like a lay magistrate sort of role. And you just think, brilliant. Oh, you know, I said I could get through a hell of a lot of those I mean, genuinely, no. I mean, seriously, that's a whole load done. That's more than they decide in any given week normally. I've got no issue with it. Did you come to the country legally? Mm-hmm. Did you break the law as well and commit a criminal offence as well? OK, well, bye. No, I mean, literally nothing to discuss. I don't care if you've got your 5 children here. I don't care if you're disabled. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care. I don't care. You ain't allowed in my country. Get the hell out. And I would ship you out. And if you're not going to be willing to be shipped out, if you're fighting, then you're just going to be in an internment camp, and it's not going to be very pleasant. And the only way out of that is a plane home. That's what we need to do. Nothing to discuss. But you and I ain't going to be on those panels, and I'll tell you why. Because no one gets to be in any of these roles unless they are part of the great and the good and have all the right opinions. You know that, and I know that. I might sort of dye my hair pink and call myself Moonlight, and do you think I might have a better chance of being on a panel?
I would love you to do that, but you are no longer allowed on the show. We've got to have rules. Just find it. I've got to mention this. We'll have the defence is going to be a bigger issue as the week goes on. But Keir Starmer, apparently, this is how delusional this man is. He is eyeing up, you know, because they always look at Prime Minister like, what do I do next? Yeah, he wants to be the NATO Secretary-General, the man who's totally underfunded defence, man who doesn't understand it at all, who would not even support our ally America and allow them to use our base, which American forces were with the attacks on Iran, one of the greatest threats, not just the Middle East, but to us in the Western civilization. And he wants the job as the NATO Secretary-General. I mean, is he on drugs of some sort?
I couldn't comment on that.
Explanation.
I think his wife is probably pushing him to do that because then he's out of the country a little bit more and not under her feet.
Harsh,
but
it must
probably
be
true.
Very tedious having a morose, moping ex-prime minister at home.
Well, exactly. But the NATO general job is generally for a good former prime minister to take on,
or a former defence secretary.
Yeah, a good one. I think that's the key phrase.
I mean, genuinely, it is properly laughable, that job, properly laughable. Yeah. But, I mean, again, that's how delusional this man is. I mean, I mean, we've got to get him out. I mean, 20th of July. Bye. Anyway, I want to hear from you. Gosh, there's so much more to talk about. 10:25 is the time. Do give us a call. 0344 499, your thoughts on all of that. But in particular, of course, Andy Burnham's big speech. Will we seeing that at 11:30? I'm still trying to decide whether we take any of it live or not. Do you want to have a little bit? I mean, let me know whether you want to take it live or not, because we can talk about it, get some clips. But give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. This is Talk.
on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:28 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Peter is in Liverpool. Peter, you want to talk about this big set-piece speech from Andy Burnham, where he's going to be laying out one of his top priorities as Prime Minister. What do you make of it, what we've heard so far?
I wonder whether anybody is as furious as I am. This guy, he's just been planted in, and he's now making presidential speeches and talking about a 10-year term. Who the hell does he think he is?
Oh.
If you really want to look at his resume, just take a look at Manchester.
Yeah.
He's had how long in Manchester running that? And I would have gone to Manchester quite a few years ago. I wouldn't dream of going now. It doesn't look safe at all.
Well, I mean, look, they did have some problems where they had a totally failing police force, and he apparently took very little interest in that, very little interest in grooming gangs, and an awful lot of this sort of Manchesterism, this sort of booming economy. Apparently, a lot of the figures are, frankly, a little bit questionable, but also a lot of it was happening before he even became Mayor of Manchester.
Oh, yeah, but the biggest thing I don't like is that I don't like a Prime Minister being picked for me. And I feel like the last maybe 5 have all been picked for me by the left.
Well, hold on a minute. I mean, it's to a certain extent, unless you live in the constituency where whoever's leader of a political party that gets the biggest number of MPs in the Commons in an election, unless you get a chance to vote for them individually, none of us get to. It's up to the party to decide who their leader is. I mean, constitutionally, Labour have got every right not to have an election, apart from the fact that every time the Tories changed their leaders, they demanded a general election. I mean, they can't have it both ways. No,
but I think in this case, it's quite an exceptional case. To be voted in as Prime Minister by 25,000 people in Makersfield is a bit rich, I think.
Yeah, you're not happy. And in terms of his plans to sort of deliver growth in every postcode?
No. And like I say, he's now getting up today before he's even got to number 10 and making this presidential speech.
Well, haven't we been asking him to set out what his plans are? Because he was saying, well, I'm just wanting to be an MP, and now he's running to be Labour leader. Don't we want to know what he wants to do?
I would have liked it as an MP for a few years first to find out what kind of character it is. I think most of the people in the country really don't understand what they're dealing with.
I agree with you on that, 100%.
This guy is more left than Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I think, and again, if you only have to look at his advisers, the fact that they're still considering Ed Miliband for Chancellor, that alone is such a sign of madness. It writes off everything. Peter, thank you for that. Daniel in Epsom is on the line. Daniel, you want to talk about the latest immigration stories we've just been mentioning.
I just find it totally preposterous. I cannot understand why you would give people that have illegally broken into your country, invaders, a British citizenship. Why?
Under any circumstances, yeah.
Only an insane country would do that. I mean, every single day, it seems, we're seeing some sort of rape, sexual harassment, murder, or terrorist incident every day in our news from people that we didn't want or ask for. How is it possible to be so out of touch with the thoughts of the British majority?
Yeah.
And also, there was a story out a couple of days ago where they looked at by ethnic group who puts the most into the economy. The only ethnic group that put a lot more into the system than they remove is the white British group. All the other groups take more out of the system than they put in. What do you think is going to happen to Britain when we are systematically replaced? How do you think this country is going to fare? I can tell you, not very well.
I think a lot of it, again, completely depends. I don't think it's about ethnicity so much as country of origin. I think, and again, that has family unit, the reason why people come here. I mean, again, you know, if we're going to take, like, you know, India's brightest and best, you know, I mean, you know, proper entrepreneurs and highly educated, skilled people set up business here. It's like, yeah, bring it on. Yes, please. But no, I'm not entirely sure we should be taking anyone from any country who's barely got any skills and is doing very little. I mean, again, the debate in the Home Office seems to be about whether or not care workers and NHS workers who've come on these supposedly skilled worker visas. I mean, with all due respect, if your job takes 2 weeks to train, it's not skilled work. I mean, it's important work. I'm not pretending it isn't. I visit my aunt in her care room every week. I see the lovely work these wonderful, wonderful people do. But there's a reason why we use the word skilled, a specific meaning. But the idea that somebody's come from abroad to do that they should be eligible for British citizenship after 5 years rather than 10 years. I mean, frankly, I don't know why anyone should be eligible for British citizenship automatically anyway, but it's quite bizarre.
I just look around at this country and I can't believe that it's the country I grew up in. It's an absolute... The decline and degradation in Britain today is staggering. And I can't... We need bold, tough government, and we're not getting it.
Well, a 10-year plan to devolve power to local mayors. Surely that's the answer, Daniel.
I just can't... Why can't people see that there are 72 million people trying to use an infrastructure fit for about 50 million, right? Yeah. And in 1997, the population was around about 50 to 55 million. So since that date, we've absolutely... Successive governments have ruined my home. They've ruined my children's future. Can you imagine if Elon Musk bought a country tomorrow, right? And he said, this country, everyone deserves their own homeland. We all agree, and everyone said, yeah. He said, right, this country is just for native white European people. Can you imagine the people that the volumes of people that would move there?
That's the trouble thing. Again, I don't want to get caught up in the colour. I just don't care about the colour of anyone's skin. I'm sorry. I think that's completely missing the point. I don't think the colour of anyone's skin makes a blind bit of difference to their achievements, their abilities, their heart, or anything. It's about culture. It's about culture and background. Daniel, I'm going to have to go because, as always, we've always yapped too much, and then I'm always late for my first guest start down the line. Daniel, brilliant call there. I really appreciate that, Daniel and Epsom. We're going to take a very quick break, and then we're going to be hearing from, yeah, you guessed it, independent MP. About to be, he hopes by the 20th of July, a Labour MP again for Hull East. That's Carl Turner. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Well, let's hope to get some common sense from our next guest. Carl Turner was a Labour MP, hoping to return to be Labour MP when Andy Burnham becomes the next Prime Minister, but he's currently independent MP for Hull East. A very good morning to you once again, Carl.
Good morning, Julia.
Would you promise to carry on coming on the show even when you go back to being a Labour MP?
I very much hope so.
When you're not out in the cold anymore. Now, I've got to ask you, in an hour's time, Andy Burnham will take a bit of the speech. I won't take the whole thing. But Andy Burnham is giving a speech in Manchester. No questions from journalists. It's quite interesting. Kevin Badenoch's been doing a speech on the economy this morning, very pointedly taking questions from journalists. But he's going to deliver his 10-year plan, talk about his 10-year plan, basically stripping Whitehall of power, having a number 10 up north, delivering good growth, he says, in every postcode, basically moving power to devolve power through England. Is this the top priority? A bit of shuffling of the seats, shuffling of different committees making decisions around different public bodies. Is that the top priority to sort this country out?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know what he's about to say. I spoke with him incredibly briefly yesterday evening, and we did discuss what he was going to be saying today. But I expect him to be talking about devolution and widening it, and actually fiscal devolution, which is what I think is important. But I've got to be honest with you, Julie, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I think he's got some good ideas. I'm keen to hear from him, and I think the country will be as well. I'm pretty optimistic. I don't want to be sort of, being miserable about it. I just want to be enthusiastic, optimistic,
Well,
and
that's
hope for the
lovely.
country.
Absolutely, and let's all just be gung ho and optimistic. But the reality is, if his first big speech, now he's no longer campaigning to be the Makerfield MP, but he's campaigning to be the next Labour leader and therefore the next Prime Minister, without a doubt, he will be our next Prime Minister. The question is whether or not there's some contest and Al Khan's or someone else decides to run. Looks very unlikely at the moment. We think we would probably have heard about that from now. But at the end of the day, if his number one, what can we judge him on? What he says and what he does. Well, he can't do anything yet. He's not PM. We can judge him on what he did in Manchester. We can judge what he's done when he was an MP before and when he was a cabinet minister. But if his number one speech, his choice of what he wants to talk about is about basically rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, which is what it feels like to me, devolving power, another layer of bureaucracy, gimmicks like a number 10 in the north, moving a load of, let's face it, civil servants up north. In what way do you believe, you've not, Hull East, you've not got a seat in the heart of London, have you? You're not an Islington MP. In what way is that going to deliver economic growth, going to deliver jobs, going to cut welfare, going to provide more funding for defence, tackle mass immigration? In what way is it going to do any of that?
Well, look, he's not rearranging the people on the Titanic at the moment, is he? Because the Titanic, in your analysis, is based in central London, in Westminster. What Burnham's going to be talking about is devolution and moving some government, not all of it, but some government departments up north.
And how does that make a difference to people's lives, whether there's a job or whether someone sets up a business? Well, how does that make a difference?
I think it matters because the decision-making is where the decisions are effective. So, I'm sick to death, if I'm honest with you, with decisions being made in offices in Whitehall with a few ministers involved and lots of officials deciding what's going to happen to me in the north. Let me give you an example. I've been campaigning since I've been an MP in 2010 for the electrification of the rail between Selby and Hull. Right, that's been promised time and again, right?
Nothing
the Tories
happens,
promised it, nothing happened. We as MPs in Hull got businesses together and said, will you pay for it? They said yes. The Tories said, we're not doing it. Labour came in. I went to the Secretary of State. I said, what about it? They said, well, hang on a minute. We'll have to talk to officials. It just doesn't get done, right?
Yep.
So it's the Labour Party in government, the Tories in government, the North gets left behind, and I'm sick to death, right, of decisions being made in Whitehall which affect my people in East Hull, where I was born and bred, and actually none of it makes sense to our people.
I completely get that, and it's one of the reasons why I thought the HS2 project was mad, in the sense, well, actually, you could spend a fraction of that money. You could join up a lot of the cities in the Midlands and the North, spending a fraction of that. People who make decisions in London, they can either, these young men, a lot of them making the policy, they cycle to work because they live locally, or they're getting the London Tube. They don't realise that most people rely on buses in most of the country. Actually, most people drive. But here's the thing. Most people I know in London think the decision makers by their local council, by the London mayor and by the Westminster government are also useless. Maybe the issue is public sector people who haven't got a sodding clue how to run a business. Certainly we're including Rachel Reeves in that, because if you think that you can deliver growth by putting literally a tax on employing people, you definitely don't understand how businesses work. Maybe the problem is the public sector getting in. Maybe the public sector getting the hell out of people's lives, getting out of businesses' lives and letting businesses do what they do. They're the ones who create jobs. They're the ones who create wealth. Isn't that the solution? Rather than another layer of bureaucracy.
Well, I agree with you in part. My experience as being a constituency MP is that businesses in my area know what's going on. They know about the night economy. They know about what drives the economy locally. They know what they need to get things moving. They know about how to employ and how they can increase their employment potential as a result of decisions that they want to make. The trouble is, it's true that they're held back. Now, the Tories used to call it the blob in Whitehall, in the civil service. I don't think that. I think civil servants do a fairly good job, but the problem is they've got to be directed to do a job. And I think that's what's lacking. So I agree with you in part. I think what we need is leadership by ministers, and we need to have a no-nonsense attitude now from now on. Get in there, get the job done, direct it officials, and don't take no for an answer.
That sounds great. Carl, that all sounds great. The officials ain't listening. Most of them, it turns out, aren't even working in the office, so they're not even going to hear. They might get a message down the Zoom line. They're not doing what people are told. I mean, this is the thing. All of these words sound great. There's just nothing in here to practically deliver. He's talking about reindustrialisation. Well, you can't reindustrialise while you're supporting net zero policies that make energy expensive.
Well, look, I think the net zero stuff, right, if I was influential in his new government, I'm not sure I will be. I'm not sure I necessarily want to be. But if I was, I'd be saying the Department for Energy and Climate Change should be what it used to be. Stop the net zero nonsense, right? Because it puts people off straight away.
No, it's not puts people off. It is strangling our economy.
Right, I agree that there is a problem there.
But wait a second, but you support Andy Burnham, even though Andy Burnham, by all accounts, fully signed up to this and is even considering the man who is fully in favour of all this and wants to push further and harder on net zero, he's still considering him to be his chancellor. That tells you this is a man who cannot deliver growth.
No, it isn't. It doesn't tell you that at all.
You can't have growth and there is literally no country in the world that delivers that pushes net zero policies and has growth. There isn't one, not one.
Okay, it tells you that, right? But what I'm going to do is reserve. What I'm going to do is reserve judgment, right? I'm enthusiastic.
Oh, that's great.
First time. Hang on, you're going to allow me to be, surely, to be enthusiastic, right?
About what?
For the first time in a long time,
about
right?
About what? What are you enthusiastic about?
Well, I'll tell you if you let me. We've got a leader potentially who's got good experience in local government, i.e. regional mayoralty, right? He's got previous experience of being a cabinet minister at a fairly high level. He's somebody who knows what he's done. He's got a proven track record in Manchester. Not everybody loves him. I agree with that. But he's delivered in Manchester. The economy there is booming. It's a lot better than it was when he took office. That's the truth.
A lot of that isn't down to Burnham.
Well, all right, then what's it down to then? I don't know.
But by all accounts, a lot of the things that were happening before from the Manchester local government before. No, that's what a lot of people there are saying. Not my opinion. I don't know.
So the economy is approved in Manchester, but it's got nothing to do with the fact that...
I didn't say it's got nothing to do with it. A lot of these processes were in place before he arrived as mayor in 2017. So let's give the guy a chance
to prove himself, right? But I'll tell you this much. I'll be the first to be telling him and the world at large if I think he's doing a crap job. That's what I'm prepared to do.
And I trust you on that. I'm just saying, if you're enthusiastic... You want him to do a good job? Do you know what? I want him to do. I want him to do a good job because we need good. I don't want the country to go to the hell in a handcart. But I'm just saying, if this is his choice of his first speech, his first major policy announcement as basically a prime minister in waiting, it doesn't bode well.
Well, look. We'd all have a preference for what we want him to speak about first. It's not his priority. I don't expect it to be. But I'd like him to be standing on his back feet and talking about why jury trial curtailment was a shocker of an idea.
Jury trial, I get that. But that's not a number one issue. There are about 5 important issues, none of which he's chosen to talk about.
But what do you want him to do today, right? Tell me.
Well, I want to know how, not fine words, but how will he deliver growth, increase jobs? How is he going to, and how much by cut welfare spending? How is he going to fund defence? How is he going to tackle legal and illegal mass immigration? What's he going to do about net zero? If he doesn't tackle all of those things, he's not a serious contender.
Well, hopefully he's going to tell us today what he's going to do about those things, right? But I think the reality with Andy Burnham, this is my view of him, I think he's got a different way of him and he's got an ability to bring people with him. I think that's true, right? He works collaboratively. He works with party political people who are not in his party. He works across political divide. That stuff matters in my view.
It does. Keir Starmer did a load of this up again, but at the end of the day, it's what your ideas are and what your actual plans are. Carl, we'll have to leave it there.
We have to have a plan, Julia. He has to have a plan.
Yeah,
Keir Starmer didn't have a plan. Burnham's got to have a plan.
By all means, Andy Burnham is piecing together his plan right now. That's a little bit of a worry. Call me old-fashioned. Carl Turner, independent MP for Hull East. Thank you very much. Claire Pearsall, response to that. Sorry.
What is this where you make the decisions, it's going to be the most effective? I don't even really understand that.
Why?
A lot of decisions about my county of Kent are made in London, which from my house is 26 miles away, and quite often they get it wrong.
But you could exactly. But I'm saying I'm not entirely sure that the public employees are the best people to make decisions about boosting these things. I'm just not sure that they are.
Unless they live the life.
Exactly. 10:48. It's time to take a quick break. Going to talk about those latest migration figures, but also this idea that the public, members of the public, should basically help decide asylum appeals. But I don't think you and I are going to be allowed on those panels. We'll talk about that up next with Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. This is Talk.
Starmer's old news. On to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham. Just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 10:50 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Claire Pearsall still with me as well. Get her thoughts on what my next guest has to say about various different migration stories in the news, because, of course, they're always in the news, aren't they? Usually bad news. Robert Bates is Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Good morning to you.
Morning, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you on. Let's talk first of all about this plan for Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, to jettison these judges on these asylum panels, but to allow members of the public to decide asylum appeals. Sounds on the face of it really good, but I have a funny feeling that me, you and Claire probably wouldn't make it onto those panels, would we?
I very much doubt it. I think actually it'll just become an avenue for left-wing busybodies and care for Calais types to have even greater involvement in what is already an overburdened and creaking asylum system. Yeah. I think the general idea of decreasing the number of appeals that an asylum seeker can make to just one is a move in the right direction. I don't think it quite meets the moment, quite frankly. I think actually, given that the Labour Party presided over the asylum appeals backlog exploding by about 70% in just the last year, the system probably actually of appeals needs to be completely ended, because quite frankly, I don't think we can cope with the cost of accommodation and the legal costs. But I think it's definitely something that the government have recognised is a problem, and they are trying to address it somewhat. I would say actually, though, with all of these announcements today, that the key thing to identify is what the government actually wants to see in terms of removals, and it's made it very clear it wants to see an increase of deportations and removals of just 4,500 a year. I think most people in the country would look at where we currently are and think that increase is nowhere near the scale that we need to be
So would
seeing.
that be an increase of 4,500 or an increase to 4,500?
An increase of 4,500, 45,000 over a decade, but that would still leave us way below some of the levels that we saw in the 2010s.
Yeah.
And actually, when you consider that we still see tens of thousands coming across the channel, we have tens of thousands of visa overstays, tens of thousands of foreign
thousands
criminals.
just last week alone. But this is the thing. I think most people say there shouldn't be a target to remove, this number or that number. It's to remove everybody. I mean, the target should be anyone who comes here should be removed.
Well, it should be, but the government have made it very clear that they don't see that as possible, and that is, of course, for all the obvious reasons that they've bound themselves in the straitjackets of human rights law, the Refugee Convention, and so forth. And I think actually that the real problem with the appeals is what happens to individuals who have had their appeal rejected. It doesn't even then necessarily mean that they do get removed, because of course they are able to make claims that returning them to certain countries, particularly sort of Eritrea and Afghanistan and so forth, is just so unsafe that we have no choice but to keep them in the country. So we're
not putting them in internment camps. They're in asylum hotels or in houses of multiple occupancy, in your street.
Well, quite scattered across the community, terrorising locals. I mean, some of the plans that have been unveiled in the last week or so really are actually quite astounding, and I think sort of border on cultural vandalism, cultural and social vandalism from this government. They just simply haven't got the ability to grip an asylum system now that has exploded out of all control. It's costing us, nearly £5 billion a year. It's imposing huge social tensions across the country, every corner, all the way up from Falkirk down to Brighton. There is incidents that we have seen of social disharmony and terrible incidents and crimes taking place.
Not incidents. I mean, a horrific abuse of children, of young women, rape, sexual assault, violent crime, drugs. I mean, it's off the scale in terms of what is happening. And again, people keep saying, people, it's racist and bigoted and xenophobic and people are stirring this up. But, these crimes are happening and we've got plenty of our own criminals. We don't need to import any more. But what's fascinating, even when it comes to, the lefty, open borders, everyone has a right to be anywhere, you'd think even they would understand that people who come here, who are from abroad, who commit crime shouldn't be allowed here. You can't enter America even for a holiday if you've got a criminal record from Britain. Why would they want you? But a record 20,000 foreign criminals have avoided deportation. So people are actually committing an offence and yet they are living freely in Britain. I mean, just quite extraordinary.
It really is. So we have an individual come into the country, commit a heinous crime if they've been given a sentence worthy of them being deported. Then the government, because it is so inept and it has bound itself up with so many regulations and human rights rules, is simply unable to remove them and so throws its hands up in the air. The reason for this, of course, is because the individuals can only be held in immigration detention if there is a realistic prospect of them being removed. And because we do see these abilities to launch endless judicial reviews or human rights claims or modern slavery claims, these individuals are able to drag their heels to such an extent the government just gives up on them. And actually, I think the government is very, very bad at keeping the data on where these individuals actually are as well, which is even more concerning. They've promised repeatedly that they'll be publishing the whereabouts of these foreign criminals, but they haven't yet been able to actually gather it to publish it.
Yeah. By the way, these are the criminals who've been caught, who've been prosecuted, who've been convicted. And as we know, we've got, give or take a 3% conviction rate for most crimes in this country. So, I mean, who are we kidding about all the others who haven't been caught or prosecuted? They haven't bothered. I mean, extraordinary also that even if we do deport them, thousands come back. Nearly 4,300 individuals who'd previously been kicked out of the country were back in the UK between 2021 and 2025. This is a Sun investigation. So then, they previously deported in just the last 5 years, and then they just come back because they know it's a free-for-all. Also, just finally, I must ask this, because this absolutely extraordinary. Labour has secretly dropped the ban on small boat migrants and other illegal migrants, those arriving, the back of lorries, which is still a thing. We just don't talk about it as much because it's not as visible, but it's still going on. Winning British citizenship. Now, there was a move by the Conservatives 3 years ago. Basically, if you arrived in this country illegally through one of these unsafe routes, you were never going to be eligible. No matter how long you stayed here, you were never going to be allowed to apply for and get a British passport. But under documents drawn up by Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, they simply have to claim that their arrival was, quote, outside their control, as in, they were trafficked. I mean, we know perfectly well these ridiculous lenient judges will go, oh, I see, you were absolutely forced to come and do that, to get on those boats and climb on the Calais beach, and therefore you've got a right to stay. And so those people will also be eligible to stay in this country. And, of course, this comes off, Mike Tapp, the Home Office Minister, and Shabana Mahmood had a big spat over the weekend. She was calling for his sacking because he was talking about what basically her plan, we understand, to water down this plan for a 10-year wait before anybody from a foreign nationality can actually apply for British citizenship, but saying for health and social care workers, and that's the vast majority of these so-called school visas, that they would be able to wait just 5 years. I mean, this stuff it's laughable if it wasn't so serious.
And it really is serious. That's the key point, especially on the toning down of the plans to reform ILR, because this could mean
indefinite leave to remain. Yep.
Yes, apologies. This could mean by the time of the next general election, we have got hundreds of thousands of care workers who the government's own forecasts admit are going to cost us billions of pounds over their lifetime, not just having settled status and definitely to remain in the country, but actually being given British citizenship. And I think when you combine that with the story of small boats migrants now being seen of good enough character to apply for British citizenship as well, we're seeing a systematic devaluation of what it means to be a British citizen. And when you consider that we're seeing hundreds of thousands of naturalisations every single year, the system is coming absolute chaos. Passports are being handed out like confetti, but we're also at the same time being told that it's such sanctity around British nationality that we can't have the conversation around whether some of these individuals actually deserve it.
Absolutely. And again, a lot of talk about Shabana Mahmood. You know, she's been sensible on this stuff. Yeah, Andy Burnham. There's no evidence whatsoever that Andy Burnham will be tough on this stuff, and therefore his next Home Secretary, whether it's Shabana Mahmood or not, will not be either.
He'll be worse. He's been made it very clear throughout his career, actually. He wants to scrap what's called no recourse to public funds, which means individuals arriving on a temporary visa in the UK would have immediate access to welfare, to social housing. So that was one of his big pushes whilst Mayor of Manchester. So I actually think the situation will get worse under Burnham, if that's possible.
I mean, it's not often I'm speechless, but it's genuinely insane, isn't it? Robert Bays, you just do fantastic work on this, Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Thank you very much. Claire Pearsall.
And I think that limiting the amount of appeals is a really good thing, and that's about the only positive I can take out of all of these announcements over the weekend. It's just obscene.
Honestly, I've been saying to everyone, people go, oh, Shabana Mahmood, she's really good, she's a very nice lady, but I'm sorry. There's no evidence Shabana Mahmood is serious about this stuff.
No.
There's just no evidence at all. And at the end of the day, the Home Secretary can only do what the Prime Minister allows, and Andy Burnham has very, very bad form on all of this stuff from what he has said and done over the years. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that, and, of course, Andy Burnham's speech. We will take a bit of it live at 11:30. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. We're fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. This is Talk, and we are the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much if you're listening on DAB Plus Radio or your smart speaker, or indeed if you're watching on YouTube or your connected device. Very much appreciate you joining us. If you do miss anything from the show, or you've missed our first hour, rip-roaring if I say so myself, most of the other people, not me, but my YouTube page is the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. You can hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we are going to be talking more about Andy Burnham's big speech, first big set-piece speech, as well. Let's be honest. I mean, he's not even officially a contender for Labour leadership, but there isn't anyone else to come forward yet. And come the 20th of July, pretty much certain he is going to be our next Prime Minister. So it's probably a good idea if we know a little bit about what his plans are, isn't it? But he's got a plan, he says, to transform the economy, to boost the economy through devolution, giving more powers and money to regional mayors, city mayors and local councils. So brilliant. A nice bit of bureaucratic reform. Apparently that's what's been going wrong in this country, not having a local mayor making a terrible decision about the local economy rather than someone in London. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Plus, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, pledging to ramp up the detention of illegal migrants as the number of foreign criminals avoiding deportation has hit a record of almost 20,000. The spate of migration stories today is absolutely befuddling. Is all I can say. Plus, a call for once-in-a-generation reforms. We always have that, don't we? Everyone always says, once-in-a-generation reform needed to fix an education system that a new independent inquiry led by a former Conservative, Labour Education Secretary, Baroness Estelle Morris. She says that they need to fix the education system that is not serving the interests of white working-class children. But did we really need yet another report? Because, I mean, haven't people been talking about this since about 1997? Anyway, we'll talk about all of that. I want to hear from you in particular about Andy Burnham's big speech. She's going to be speaking in about 25 minutes' time. We'll take a little bit of it live. My guess is we can survive longer listening to an Andy Burnham speech than we can listening to a Keir Starmer speech. That is one of the small benefits that we are going to see from the replacement of our current Prime Minister. So, thank goodness for small mercies. But is he going to make a blind bit of difference to any of the problems that are afflicting our country at the moment? He's announcing a 10-year plan to transform the economy, he says, transferring powers and money from Westminster to the north to generate, in his words, good growth, whatever that is, in every postcode. We've not had good growth in this country for about 20 years. What is your reaction to that? Do you think it will work? What are your fears? What are your hopes? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Just one other thing that's happening in the next hour, in the midday hour, we're going to have Helen Webley on. Don't know who she is? Well, she runs a company called Gender GP, based in Singapore, where she and her husband, she was a GP, he's a GP who's been struck off, and they were a business. It is a business. There's a lot of money in this business. Basically selling puberty blockers to British children, even though, of course, puberty blockers are supposed to be banned for children in this country. This ahead of the Conversion Practices Bill, which would effectively risk a parent who says to their child, no, you're not trans, there's no such thing as a trans child, and you cannot go on puberty blockers, could risk, I kid you not, up to 5 years behind bars. We'll talk about all of that with her. You do not want to miss that. As I say, delighted that Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor, here is with me today. Let's talk about Andy Burnham. Again, we're going to talk a lot about Andy Burnham because we basically want to know who is this Andy Burnham of which you speak? What are his plans? He's someone who's been around on the scene for a long time. He's been talked about as future PM since January. A lot of plans to try and get himself a seat, a lot of plans to get himself elected as the MP for Makerfield in the Manchester area. I know, not Greater Manchester, but very little plans for actually what he wanted to do, became Prime Minister, which still befuddles me. But now he's going to lay out his first big set-piece speech. No journalists are allowed to ask questions about, well, they're going to ask, I don't think he's going to answer them. A 10-year plan. First of all, so did Keir Starmer have a 10-year plan? I mean, he hasn't even been elected. He wasn't even elected under the last Labour manifesto in 24.
Yeah.
He hasn't got, a lot of people say, a mandate as Prime Minister. He's talking about being in power 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we all have a dream, don't we? And this is clearly his. But
good luck.
Yeah, good luck to him. Yeah, we're not going to learn anything. I don't think there's going to be any great detail that comes out of this. He's just going to stand there and give us all of his hopes and desires for the country and tell us all that we'll be saved. And I think that's going to be largely it.
And this is the thing, it's vibes. Everyone was talking about, like, even make of it, it's a lot about vibes, you know, and he's a good speaker, and he's very personable, but he's really likeable. He's really, honestly, he's a really likeable guy. Got no issue with him personally, I really don't. I don't think he's got sort of, you know, the awful sort of arrogance of Keir Starmer, and he's certainly much more listenable to. But his plan is stripping Whitehall of powers, you know, going to the north and other areas outside London. There are other areas outside London, the north. So English devolution. Bearing in mind that when there were, I remember when Prescott was Deputy Prime Minister, when there were actually little mini referendums, little votes, you know, whether or not people wanted to have local mayors, largely they were rejected. That's why a lot of areas don't have, you know, these metro mayors, because they didn't sodding well want them. But basically, it's going to be another layer of bureaucracy. We are a very centralised country, but he says it's going to deliver good growth to every postcode. But I'm not entirely sure that sort of rearranging the bureaucratic levels, you know, adding effectively another layer of bureaucracy is going to make a difference. Is London any better run because we now have the London Mayor Sadiq Khan? I mean, or even when it was under Boris Johnson. I mean, I don't think that mayors or local council, I don't think they create jobs. I mean, other than for themselves. Businesses create jobs. People with an idea who work hard, who set up a business that's successful, sells goods or services people want, they employ other people. They're the ones who create jobs. I'm not entirely sure whether it's Number 10 directing things or the Treasury or someone in Hull, we talked to the Hull East MP, Carl Turner earlier, or in Bristol. I don't think that anyone in the public sector is very good at doing anything to boost growth personally.
No, the one thing that I think the role of a metro mayor, for want of a better phrase, where they are very good is that they can lobby directly into government and work with businesses. And Andy Street, the former Birmingham mayor, was incredibly talented at doing that, but then he had a business background, so I do think that helped him enormously, and it's very sad that he's left that position. But there are some areas. Kent does not have a mayor, for example. Hampshire doesn't have one. Yes, very. And you just think, well, how is it going to work if your area doesn't have a mayor anyway? Is that then just more responsibility for the local authority, which clearly doesn't cope very well? Kent is a basket case of a county when it comes to these things, because we're on the front line of the migration crisis. We also take in a lot of homeless and other looked after children from London into our county, so we are disproportionately affected by things like that. Who is going to stand up and make the growth work for the area of Kent? Because I don't see it, and I don't think he's going to address any of that.
But I mean, this is the thing that, you know, and there's the big concern that, you know, he wants to give mayors powers to help the lost generation of neets. And again, but a lot of that, again, you're into parenting, you're into the failure in schools, and that ties in with that report from Baroness Esther Morris about, you know, white working class kids being failed again and again. I mean, by the way, also often failed by their parents, who've also been failed by the schools, who've also been failed by their parents. You know, you blah 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 blah. But I mean, I'm just not entirely sure what powers they're going to have. There's also, you know, the story about today. You know, he caved into the unions when he gave bus drivers in Manchester up to a 56% pay rise, one of his last acts as Mayor of Manchester, and that was over a 2-year period. But I mean, you know, that's a huge pay rise, maybe bigger than, you know, any other even public sector workers are getting. I mean, you know, anyone can do deals, anyone can get stuff done if you're literally willing to just throw out some public money. But imagine there aren't that many bus drivers in Manchester. Well, there are a hell of a lot of public sector workers across Britain. If you betray, I mean, as Wes Streeting, when he was Health Secretary, betrayed to the doctors by doing a deal with them, you know, on sort of the first few weeks as Health Secretary, you're basically saying, I will hand out money to keep you quiet and get what I want. Well, then that is what is going to happen. It's very interesting that Andy Burnham doing a speech in about 20 minutes' time, but we had a speech already from Kemi Badenoch this morning at which she pointedly took journalist questions. But one of the things, I mean, she said she called on Andy Burnham to call a general election, particularly if he can't fund defence, if he signs off on the current defence investment plan, which we're now told isn't going to be £13.5 billion, only £10 billion of which is actually proper new money and not an accounting game, and it could could be up to 15 billion under the new Defence Secretary after John Healey resigned. That's Dan Jarvis. That still doesn't touch the sides of the needs. So if he's not going to fund defence, he should call general election. Again, there's still no constitutional mean for this. But it's very interesting. One of the things she said is that, bearing in mind she comes from a Nigerian heritage background, Kemi Badenoch claimed that Ed Miliband is behaving like a Nigerian military dictator with his plans for state intervention. She says Miliband would ruin Britain's economic potential. He wants to do more state control. He has terrible policies at reducing our capacity and reducing our energy security. She says, having lived under both, Nigeria and in Britain, I'm uniquely placed to make that comparison. Ed Miliband is acting... Ed Miliband is acting like the Nigerian military dictators who ruined a lot of that country's economic potential and made it so much poorer. We should not make the same mistake. And the fact that Ed Miliband is still being considered as a possibility for Andy Burnham's Chancellor. The fact that he doesn't know he wants to be Chancellor, that is still... And that Ed Miliband is totally wedded to the net zero, is not climbing down, would not climb down on that. And Andy Burnham, there's no evidence that he would as well. I mean, we are talking about a disaster. You can't have growth. You can't reindustrialise if you're wedded to net zero. They are physical impossibilities to do both.
Yes, these two things cannot work together at the same time. It's just an impossibility. But what was also interesting were the rumours that Ed's brother David... coming back from the United States.
Remember him?
Yeah,
I'm surprised he could take the pay cut. Isn't he on about sort of £750,000?
Yeah,
working for a charity.
Why would you want to come back here and take a massive pay cut?
Because power. Once you've got, I think with all these people, once you've got enough money, power is what you want.
Come and play in Parliament.
Don't you think it's fascinating though? So the job you, 403 Labour MPs.
Yes.
There's a few independents and things, but basically 403 Labour MPs. And they decided that Keir Starmer among them is useless, right? And they couldn't find a single one among those 400 MPs to replace him in Parliament. So they had to get one to resign, to get another one in to be Prime Minister. And now he's looking at who shall I put in my cabinet in the top jobs, and one of them being the Foreign Secretary, because he's obviously got no interest in foreign affairs and wants someone who's experienced in foreign affairs contacts. Yvette Cooper could argue, but again, she's a bit of an also-ran in every job she's done, it has to be said. Very senior figure, but never... She'll get a job, but she's a bit,
She's always the bridesmaid, isn't she?
Yeah, isn't she? And apparently there's no one again in the Parliamentary Labour Party who's good enough to be Foreign Secretary. He's going to bring someone in who's not just an ex-MP, but ex-MP living in the United States.
Is this a one-in, one-out situation? If he brings in David Miliband, do we get to say who he can send away to a different country elsewhere to be quiet?
Let's send Ed Miliband.
Swap them over.
I'd take David over Ed, I've got to be honest with you, but... Again, I mean,
it's not going to solve any problems.
Yeah, I mean, David Cameron, of course, the precedent there. He came back after being Prime Minister. I mean, David Miliband had been a senior cabinet minister, but of course, crucially, beaten to the top job of the Labour leadership by Ed Miliband in 2010. How'd that work out for them? The whole thing is utterly, utterly bizarre. Well, Kemi Badenoch says Britain's heading for a summer of chaos. Caretaker Prime Minister barely in office, definitely not in power, she said this morning. All major policy and spending decisions have been put on hold. And basically accused Andy Burnham of wanting a 3-month summer holiday to figure out his policy agenda. That said, there were a lot of criticisms of her when she became Tory leader, and she had this idea that she was just going to spend 2 years looking at policy. Well, good luck with that, everyone said, as Nigel Farage just made announcement after announcement, and she's had to up her game. And boy, has she upped her game.
She has, but also wasn't in charge of the country. So I can understand that if you are in the position of Prime Minister, taking 3 months off to have a little think about what you want to do doesn't really cut it when you're the man signing the cheques at the top.
No, absolutely.
So I think it was a little different. I mean, I was of the opinion that you can't have the luxury of 2 years to come up with some policies when you expect people to go out there and canvass for local elections for the Conservative Party, and you don't know what it is that you're asking.
And also people need to get to know you, and they need to know what you're thinking. Just going to interrupt now. Very sad news. You know that. There are lots of actors and actresses who've been around many, many years, but ones who just stick in your mind as just absolutely brilliant and just wonderful, wonderful figures. Dame Penelope Keith, you'll know her, of course, for sitcoms like The Good Life and To the Manor Born, has died at the age of 86. Her family have confirmed. But I mean, just a fabulous actress. I mean,
superb.
Properly funny, properly brilliant, funny character actress.
You believed every role she had.
Oh.
You believed she was that person.
And I'm let me get absolutely not genuinely lovely and not at all this sort of this very should we say difficult figure.
Yes.
I have a dress which I bought as a joke, but I still not wear it, which my family call my Penelope Keith dress. It's sort of one of those, you know, she used to turn up these big,
Yes,
these big brightly coloured, just turn up for drinks at the neighbours, and they're in welly boots and a jumper, and there she is in her full finery.
Properly dressed. We like that. Top woman.
Penelope Keith, honestly, one of the British greats, I have to say, in our acting. Look, let's also talk about these latest asylum-y stories as well. I mean, it's asylum-y. It's so bewildering. It is so bewildering. We keep getting a lot of talk in the right talk from Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, and a lot of talk that she wants to stay as Home Secretary as well. But again, I'm not entirely sure that Andy Burnham signs up to what we believe are her views in terms of limiting legal and illegal migration. I think they're both on such a mass scale. They've both got to be sorted. But allowing the public, so basically to decide asylum appeals is one of the things they're looking at, jettisoning judges who've been making all the wrong decisions, allowing someone, you know, a foreign criminal, you can't be sent back to Albania or wherever because your kid doesn't like chicken nuggets in Albania. I mean, that's sort of the one that sticks in the mind because that's how mad it is. These asylum judges are definitely a problem. The European Court of Human Rights and the Convention on Human Rights, also the problem. All of the asylum laws, it's all mad. But you think, oh, this sounds good. So, yeah, let's have a village hall. You know, anyone can turn up, right? Can queue up, and then we get to have a vote. No. They're going to be selecting and training lay people to make these decisions. And you know exactly who they're going to select and train. And unless you sign up, you know, for all the DEI... I mean, you can't become a KC in this country. You can't become a judge unless you sign up to this DEI nonsense and you play along with all that management. You will not be allowed... I mean, I would encourage people, genuinely, to lie and pretend so they can get on those panels and then make sensible decisions. I think I might not get away with that on account of being quite public about my views, but I could sort those panels right now. I don't even need to hear any of their cases. No, 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 no. Did you come to my country illegally? Are you no longer... Are you not a British citizen? Bye. Thanks for coming. No interest in anything you have to say. You're gone. I mean, that's how you decide these things, isn't it?
Do you think this is actually a case for better devolution? Because you just mentioned village halls, and I think that if you had a lot of the members of the WI setting up a panel in village halls across the country, you'd get things done pretty quick because they're quite efficient, and they wouldn't stand for any nonsense either. Some of the ladies in my village I certainly wouldn't argue with.
And some lovely flower arrangements, and there'd be cake for everyone.
And jam.
There is that. I think there might be letters about this. Right, we're going to take a quick break. There's so much more I want to talk about, but we're going to take a little bit of Andy Burnham's speech at around 11:30. And we're going to take your calls a little bit later. I promise we will get you lots of calls coming on the board about anything and everything we're talking about, including Andy Burnham's 10-year plan to transform the British economy. I'm sorry, you can be as optimistic as you want. What we know so far, and it's not, we are told, going to be a very detailed speech, I don't think it's going to do that, and I'm not sure he should waste his time worrying about, I don't know, anything more than 3 years, just saying. But your calls on 0344 499 1000 are very welcome. Up next, we're going to talk to the former senior police officer, Chris Phillips, about record number of foreign criminals avoiding deportation and all of the other big stories on criminality. Those are up next. This is Talk.
Andy Burnham just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
We've got some across the UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome back to the show. It's just coming up to 23 minutes past 11. Don't forget Andy Burnham's speech. I'll keep yapping on about it. I don't think you can forget coming up. Hopefully at 5:30. We'll see if it runs a little bit late or if they're interminable introduction bits, which we won't bother with, but we'll take a little bit of that live. First up, though, let's talk about the latest crime stories in lawless Britain. Chris Phillips, former senior police officer, joins us. He's also a former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Good morning to you once again, Chris.
Good morning, Julia.
Always good to talk to you, although it's always a bad sign. It means something bad has happened. I mean, we never talk to you about, oh, did you see a lovely rainbow last night, Chris?
No.
It never seems to be the story, does it?
I need to change my subject.
Yeah, exactly. A record 20,000 foreign criminals have avoided deportation. I mean, how?
Well, I mean, this goes to the heart of the matter, really, about, I think, the problems in the UK have been that we've completely lost faith in our criminal justice system. This is just another indicator of that. I think most people feel that across the world, if you committed offences in countries, you would most definitely be ejected back to the UK, quite rightly so. And the fact that that's not happening here just goes to show how weak we've become and a soft touch right across the system.
But it's not just a soft touch. I mean, it's much more serious than that. We're talking about people who are, you know, serious, violent offenders and being allowed to stay here under very spurious grounds when the rule was very, very simple. I mean, bearing in mind, by the way, these are just the people who got caught and convicted. I mean, bearing in mind the conviction rates are about, 3% for, let's face it, most crimes, unless it's murder or something. So, I mean, I'm not optimistic that we haven't got, 10 times that. Or even 100 times that actually still living in the country.
And on top of that, Julia, we've also got a system where, we caution people, we let people off with, for good behaviour without actually going before the courts. Someone goes before the court, it's generally because they've committed a series of offences, unless it's one of the more serious offences, which has got to go to court.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, they're kind of the tip of the iceberg. And even then we can't get rid of them. But I thought the deal wasn't the deal that, you go to prison if it's something serious, you go to prison, you serve your sentence, not that anyone does that anymore, and then you're just deported from the prison. You're deported, but we know routinely they're not. They're just going back out and living in amongst the rest of us.
And the sentencing itself is a lie, isn't it? And we've all now accepted that it's a lie, because if you give someone 10 years, everyone thinks, well, that seems a reasonable payment for the crime they've committed, and then you find out they're out in 4. And actually less than that because they've been on remand. So the whole criminal justice system has just been let to go to wreck and ruin.
And that's not just down to Labour. We had a massive big issue, didn't we? In the first few months of the Labour government, when they were letting out a load of very serious criminals early. Again, they were told it wouldn't be sex offenders, it wouldn't be violent criminals, and actually, a lot of domestic abusers were allowed out, a lot of other very serious criminals. The Ministry of Justice has already written to more than 7,300 victims, telling them that the government's reforms are going to see criminals in their case let out of jail within months. We're looking at September because they want to free up yet more space in jails because the prisons in England and Wales currently have just 3,400 available spaces. And so basically we're looking at offenders being let out very, very early, including sexual predators, rapists, violent criminals. And again, someone being sentenced to 8 years, and it used to be, OK, well, they served 2/3 of their sentence. That's still unacceptable to me. But now they're serving half, even less than half, a third even. I mean, I used to think it was a joke, but it is just a blatant lie. And I always get cross with people when they say, well, they've been sentenced, they're gonna serve, 10 years behind bars. Well, no, they aren't. They've been sentenced to 10 years, but it's a lie. And we really do need judges to be more open about that in the courts, don't they? But these are people who, you know, the battle to even get these people to court, the battle to get them convicted, the years of waiting, and then these people are literally just walking out, I mean, having a laugh, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, Julia, this is something that goes back even to the 80s. You know, in the 1980s, I was working as a police officer. I was working looking after prisoners in police stations because all the prisons were full. This was a situation that we had even back then. It's not got any better. The only thing that's changed is that the sentences become less and the number of inmates are more, thereby putting the strain on the system.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, this is at a time when we're saying to the police that you're arresting too many. Oh, sorry, you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
You know,
well, most of them are arresting. But bearing in mind, under the Tories, and again, I mean, again, when the Tories do criticise, and then you reform people, you know, like Robert Jenrick, who or Suella Braverman, who criticise Labour for letting people out, if they were in government, exactly the same thing would happen. Because unless you are just going to just build some prison camps right now, that is what you're going to have to do, because there isn't enough space. But the Tories did actually lengthen a load of sentences, the official headline sentence for people. People were serving more time behind bars for serious crimes, but it didn't occur to them they'd need to build more prisons to accommodate them.
And the thing is, it's not just the prisons, though, because people are being subjected to community orders to do work. I mean, some of the cases I know of, you know, people, their sentence was for quite serious fraud to go and work in a charity shop. And then this is a true story. They weren't happy about working in the charity shop in their own town. So the government paid for them a taxi for them to take them to the next town to work in the charity shop. You know, people are doing this. You know, these sort of things just make the public
and also, I mean, I'd have them in an orange jumpsuit, but there we are. But I mean, in the street. But this is the thing.
Cleaning the streets. We've got a problem. We've got rubbish everywhere.
Yeah, no.
You know, we would probably. I think people would probably say, OK, that's a reasonable punishment. Walking down the A3, picking up rubbish in the middle of the night. That's probably a good punishment for people.
Works for me. Works for me, I have to say. Let's also talk about grooming gangs, because a number of police forces are going to be forced to reopen thousands of grooming gang cases. We are seeing that across many of the town cities that have been identified in the past, that they're doing this. London, crucially, the Metropolitan Police could be forced to reopen. I mean, more than 4,000 cases of grooming gangs, because, of course, we've had an absurd situation where we had the London mayor, when questioned by the Conservatives at the Greater London Authority, basically pretending he didn't even understand what the question was about grooming gangs and what were they, and insisted categorically that he'd been in lots of conversations with the Metropolitan Police and was not of the view that there was a grooming gang problem in London. And let's face it, no one has ever believed that that is the case, and the police may well be forced, be told by this review, you need to reopen some 4,000 plus cases and see if you can actually put the evidence together and prosecute people who, frankly, have got away with some of the most heinous crimes against children.
And this is 4,000 victims. You know, that's what we've got to remember about this. You know, we talk about.
Well, no, it's not 4,000. It'll be many more than that. These men aren't just raping one child, are they?
No, exactly. And the key point here is that, you know, we have been neglectful about these kind of offences. And, you know, I can go back to when the police became very, very concerned that they were being dubbed as institutionally racist. They had to close their eyes. They didn't have to close their eyes, but they felt the need to close their eyes to things that were happening in their society in the name of accepting other people's culture. And that's just not right. And it's never been right. And we need to put a stop to it and deal with all these people. And as you say, you know, if you link from one to the other, they shouldn't be living in this country if they have that view.
It's very, very simple. And again, it's like, if that's someone's culture, we don't want you in the country. If it's not someone's culture, I don't see why on earth it should make any darn difference to whether or not you are prosecuted for the crime in this country. The laws are our laws in this country.
Can I just say there as well, Julia, this term Asian grooming gangs is a bad one.
It's Pakistani Muslim. It's largely Kashmiri. It's a particular issue with this particular part of Pakistan. Exactly.
I know very well that there are many people in this country of Asian origin who would never consider doing anything like this. And by using the term Asian, that's just completely wrong. It lumps too many people in with this problem.
Oh, absolutely. And the key thing is, you know, the main thing is I don't care what your background is, I don't care what colour your skin is, what your religion is. If you are raping girls, beating girls, drugging girls for your sexual satisfaction, I'm afraid I want you behind bars. And again, a lot of these sentences they go back to the sentencing. They said, 120 years for a grooming gang. Yeah, so they each got 10 or 12 years. So, you know, concurrent sentences, committing, you know, thousands and thousands of rapes and only getting 12 years sentence, which means they serve a fraction of that. Sorry, that's not justice. Chris Phillips, thank you so much for joining us. Claire Pearsall is here. Just to let you know, Andy Burnham, we're waiting for him to speak in Manchester. He's giving this big speech. Labour's candidate for the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Bev Craig, is currently speaking, so we'll wait for her to finish, with all due respect to Bev Craig, before we get to Andy Burnham. But Claire Pearsall, I mean, these crime stories, they are just mind-blowing, aren't they?
They really are. And I think Chris just highlighted that the prison spaces, we don't have enough prisons. And
your lot didn't build them.
I hold my hands up to that. And nobody wants a prison on their doorstep. And this is where you come into all of these problems with planning laws and essentially... People want people to be banged up because they're wrong, you know, they're in the wrong, so they need to be put away, but they don't want a prison being built. And I think at some point the state has to step in and say, do you know what? We're putting it
absolutely. Yeah, but again, you know, this is one of the problems of the planning laws. It's one thing Labour are trying to do. You've got to build some stuff. All right, we're going to take a very, very quick break before Andy Burnham speaks in Manchester. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:34 is the time. Still waiting for Andy Burnham to speak. He's going to be speaking, we expect, very, very shortly. Let me remind you, by the way, that TalkSport, our little friends down the corridor, they have teamed up with Meantime to create a lager in time for the World Cup. It's called So Good Lager, which will be poured from all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. So whether you're watching the action this summer or settling in for an afternoon with friends, make sure you check out talksport.com/so good to find your nearest pub. So Good, 18 plus, of course, and please drink responsibly. We would never do anything else, would we, Claire?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Have you been enjoying the World Cup action?
Do you know, I have. I didn't think I was going to get into it. Yeah, no, I have been, because it's been one of those things where me, my husband and my son have all settled down together and watched it.
I like that. These matches are going on far too late for me, but there we are. But England's through, Scotland is out, so we shall see our next match against Congo, isn't it, DRC? Right, 11:35 is the time. Andy Burnham has arrived for his speech. Lots of people clapping him, going onto the stage. As you probably see in the footage, we've got there, if you are watching on our YouTube page. We're not going to take the whole speech, but we will dip into him as soon as he starts to speak, and then we'll come out and we'll hopefully get some of your calls, your reaction. We'll see if there's any detail in what he's got to say. So as soon as he starts speaking, we will go to him. He is, of course, wearing his trademark black T-shirt. I think at some point, if you want to be Prime Minister, you start wearing a suit and tie. Let's go live to Manchester.
Good morning, everybody. Are you ready for this? I'm sounding like I used to sound when I used to DJ across this great city, and I'm probably doing that because I'm missing it so much. I'm missing all of you. I am missing all of you, missing this place, the people. You were just brilliant to me in my 9 years as mayor. I could not have asked for better backing. You were there at my back all the way through, and I will never forget what this place did for me. It's been such a wrench to leave that I've had to get special permission from what people in Westminster call my Manchester clothes. I've had to get special permission to wear them this morning. Sorry, Kemi, about that. However, I have bowed to public pressure on one front. I have bought some new running shorts. It was either do that or change the decency laws, and I opted for the former. But I can't tell you how glad it makes me that we meet at this big moment in one of my favourite places on earth, the People's History Museum. It holds real significance for me, and it's not just because one of my old coats is in a glass case upstairs, and can you believe it, comes off second best alongside Michael Foot's infamous donkey jacket. It's because these galleries tell the story of our country better than anywhere else. How through time it has not been run in the interests of the many, and how ordinary people have fought to change that status quo and make it fairer. Today, we must take inspiration from that history and get ready to repeat it. The time has come to build the broadest possible coalition of people to lift Britain back up to where we all want it to be. What hope can we have that it will be different this time? That's the question I would be asking if I was a voter right now. It's the one I want to answer as clearly as I can today, and in doing so, give the new direction the country is looking for. After 10 years of political turbulence since Brexit, and 20 years of falling living standards since the 2008 financial crash, Westminster hasn't been working for people, and it hasn't been working for a very long time. In fact, it is broken. And as a result, the country isn't where it should be. It is stuck in a rut, and clearly we can't go on like this. My generation of politicians, including me, must take responsibility. We haven't been good enough. But instead of being honest about that, the parties have continued with politics as usual, finger-pointing, point-scoring. Now, that might matter less in a world where people's lives are getting better, but when they are not, it is dangerous and destructive of what remains of public trust in politics. We cannot go through another decade like the one we have just had. We need a new determination to raise living standards of every single person in this land. And we must accept that, to do that, to fix the economy and the country, we need to change politics, and we need to do it now. So let me state my clear intention as I put myself forward. True to the motto of this city, I am going to do things differently. I am going to break with the more of the same approach that has got us here. I am going to give Britain the circuit breaker it needs. By building a more collaborative politics in Westminster, by taking power out of the centre and putting it in the hands of the people and places who can use it best. And in so doing, creating a new sense of agency, possibility and hope flowing around the country. We will make politics work for you and the place where you live. I know it can be done because we have done it here. When I started as Mayor in 2017, we set about building a new approach, a new politics based on the exact opposite of the Westminster approach. Place first, not party first. Problem solving, not point scoring. Long term, not short term. A decade on, it's incredible how much we've been able to achieve by working together instead of fighting against one another. The Greater Manchester Way is based on strong partnership between all sectors: public, private, community, voluntary, academic, faith, and our trade unions. We ask everyone to face the same way and then pull in that same direction together. Let me give you an example. When we realised the last Conservative government had done something significant by introducing 45-day work placements for young people linked to T-levels, we set ourselves the mission of finding one for every young person who wanted one. Over the course of last year, we rang round our businesses in the City region and, with the help of hundreds of companies, delivered our goal of 1,000 extra work placements. That's 1,000 extra young lives changed every year, and it shows what a place can do when it works as one. For Britain to get back where it should be, those same principles need to be applied now to how we run the country. Pull in the same direction, move forward together. But let's not kid ourselves. This is not as easy as it sounds. Westminster and Whitehall are set up for conflict, and they require radical change if the country is to get back on track. I left Westminster a decade ago with the Mayor of the Liverpool City region, Steve Rotherham, because we could see it simply wasn't working for the northwest of England and the people here, and indeed other parts of Britain, the same thing. The Parliament I returned to on Monday is full of good people, many of them here in the audience today, members of Parliament who've joined us. And they are working hard every day, trying to do the right thing for the places that they represent. But it's hard, it's too hard for them to make change. Why? Because power is not in the hands of those places that they represent, but held by an insufficiently accountable, outsourced state. We are one of the most over-centralised countries in the world. And worse, that over-centralised heart of the country is not pulling in the same way, but in different directions. That is the reality of Westminster now, both within our parties and between them, and between the departments of Whitehall. I'll be honest, I was worried about what I found on my return last week. It is a more fragmented, disjointed place than the one I left, and frankly unhappier. I will work hard to change that culture, leading from the front and showing how things can be different, letting MPs be authentic representatives and not using the whip system to create fear or close down debate, involving more people in the work of the government and drawing on the breadth and depth of talent and expertise our party has to offer. While the political direction I set is not up for negotiation, I will build an inclusive team at the very highest level so that all parts of the party and the country can see themselves reflected and represented in it. And may I say, I will not announce those decisions on appointments, certainly not today, and indeed not until the end of this process. So until then, feel free to discount the wild speculation in circulation. Message from the back of the room there. Good morning, Mr. Mason. I will reach out to other political parties to find as much common ground as we can and build that more collaborative approach I spoke about a moment ago. So, a greater sense of unity in Parliament will then allow us to give a clearer sense of direction to Whitehall. I was struck by recent comments from ministers expressing their deep frustration at the Whitehall turf wars. Like Parliament, the civil service is full of good people trying to do the right thing, but they are held back by the structure and culture in which they have to work. It is too adversarial, and too much time is wasted with departmental silos battling each other and battling the Treasury rather than getting things done. How can the country pull in the same direction when that is the reality at the very top? And as mayors, I'm sure I speak for the front row here, as mayors we have felt similar frustration over the years when those same departments constantly push back against our legitimate requests to improve our places by devolving a fraction of the power and resources they hold. The truth is this: the country spends too much time arguing and not enough time doing. I'm not sure this Whitehall culture could ever be justified. It wasn't justified when I was a minister almost 20 years ago, but it certainly can't be justified now. The stark imbalance in resources between national government and local government is holding back growth. If councils can't fix potholes, what chance do they have of bringing forward major regeneration schemes to get growth going? While national government has got bigger, particularly since the pandemic, local government is threadbare and without the resources to fulfil even statutory responsibilities. This is not just bad for councils and the areas they serve, it is bad for everywhere. It is bad for London and the South East. The whole country suffers when the regions and nations are not meeting their potential, and Londoners are left with an overheated economy and an overcrowded housing market. It is actually bad for national government too, because we will never get the growth up to the level Britain needs unless every single postcode in the land is set up to contribute to it. This country hasn't thought in that way before, but with the Makerfield test at the heart of decision making, it will do from now on. To make it happen, we will bring about the biggest rebalancing of power our country has seen. It is time for Whitehall to accept that growth cannot be ordered from the top down. Instead, it can only be nurtured from the bottom up. It comes from having the power at ground level to make a real difference, from a clear shared vision that everyone can understand and investors can back. It comes from running sound finances, as we have done here in Greater Manchester, which in turn gives businesses the stability and the confidence to invest, increasing their productivity and adoption of new technology. It comes from placing our universities at the heart of local economies, as all the mayors do, and bringing the innovation-led approach through start-ups and scale-ups. It comes from committing to decent infrastructure in all parts of the UK and getting national investors to back the aspirations set by regions. It comes from giving people the security of a good home and good employment so that they can be as productive as possible, from good mobility and an ability to afford the basics. And it comes from not leaving everything to the market, but public intervention where necessary, to set higher ambitions for towns, as we did in Stockport, and kickstart the process of change. This is Manchesterism. I think I even saw the Mayor of Liverpool clapping at that. It is a vision for good growth and a rejection of the old trickle-down model. And like the ideas this museum celebrates, which grew here and changed the country, so all parts of the UK should now be given the chance to develop their own version of the same, focusing on the things that matter most to them. Good growth in every British postcode. What a sea change that would be in the way UK government thinks about our own country. Places no longer forgotten or written off, as they have been in the past, but supported to make the best of their assets, seeing the positives in all places. And there are positives in all places, in all postcodes across this United Kingdom. Let's always remember that. Powers for our rural economies to address issues specific to them, like inadequate transport. Powers for areas undergoing industrial transition, like Port Talbot, Scunthorpe and Aberdeen. Powers for our proud coastal towns to reimagine themselves for the 21st century. And yes, more powers for London too, over education and housing, so that London can do more for itself and remain the world's greatest capital city. And you heard that here from Manchester. All of it backed by the stability that comes from sound public finances, as I said before, and the discipline of our current fiscal rules. I hope people can begin to feel, hopefully you can, some of the excitement that comes with the change that I'm setting out today. It promises a new era of possibility for Britain, possibility in places that haven't felt it for a very long time. And I know, because I heard that from people on doorsteps in the by-election. But let's give them that feeling, that ability to hope, to aspire to better. The change will be the biggest change in our lifetimes to the way the country is run, and it is consistent with the 2024 manifesto. We will create a more streamlined state with a clearer purpose, to power up all parts of the country and put a laser-like focus on growth and regeneration, good growth. The change will be driven through the Prime Minister's office in an extended operation based here in Manchester. But here's the important thing. It will only be based here. The job of Number 10 North will be to make power flow into the Midlands, into the South West, into the east of England, and yes, into London, as I said before, as much as into the North East, Yorkshire and the Humber, and here in the North West. It will be about offering new opportunities to extend devolution in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland by taking power deeper down. The people of Dundee and Bangor feel just as distant from Holyrood and the Senedd as they do from Westminster. Now get this. Number 10 North will be the nerve centre of a rewired Britain. It will be the conduit through which we redistribute power and resources across the UK. It will coordinate all parts of government at national and local level to agree a long-term economic strategy and help all places set new growth ambitions. It will be given a mission to strive for equivalent living conditions in all parts of Britain, borrowing from the German Basic Law. It will make place-based collaboration the new operating principle for UK PLC, requiring all government departments and agencies to support strategic and local authorities with staffing and resources. And let me say this very directly. And let me say this very directly. The days of Whitehall fighting the devolution power into the regions and nations are over, for good. I have had 10 years of fighting the Whitehall machine, blocking this place's progress, the progress of people here, and I am simply not prepared to accept the same for any area coming after Greater Manchester. The whole of Whitehall will now be required to get behind our places and work together with them to make quicker, more joined-up decisions. Ours will be a 10-year mission to raise living standards across the land. To do this, Number 10 North will support the regions on 3 clear tasks: reform of essential utilities, reindustrialisation and the regeneration of places. On utilities, we will ensure all parts of the UK are able to take greater public control of essential services like water, housing, energy and transport, learning from the model that has transformed our bus networks here in Greater Manchester. We will set out 10-year plans to bring down the cost of these essentials to individuals, families and businesses. On reindustrialisation, we will support every region to set clear and credible industrial ambitions and provide the support to achieve them, encouraging more cross-UK partnership between places with complementary industrial clusters, as Cambridge and Manchester have done on life sciences. We will consolidate public and private investment at a place-based level and help all areas establish good growth funds, as we have done here in Greater Manchester. We are such an inventive country, and going forward we can be the world's leading innovation nation. This is the key to higher growth, and I want more world-beating British manufacturers and service providers at the frontier of new technology and exporting to the world. I will back our scientists, technologists, entrepreneurs and creatives, as I have done here, and show how Britain will be the innovation nation of the next decade. We will get better at capturing full value from their ideas for UK PLC by changing the culture in Whitehall when it comes to backing British industry. For too long, UK public procurement policy has been based on chasing cut-price deals around the world, rather than helping our own British-based suppliers become more stable and competitive. No more. From here on, every pound raised from taxpayers will work harder for them, and that approach will apply fully to the Defence Investment Plan. We will make sure that all eligible public contracts are subject to proper social value weighting. And we will do that to make sure British-based companies are in a better position to win those contracts. This change is essential, given the need to build our own resilience in places across the country in an increasingly uncertain world. We need to safeguard sovereign manufacturing and production capability across the country in critical sectors like steel, defence, energy, food and farming, rather than just being prepared to let it go, as we have sadly done in the past. In return, we will recycle maximum benefits for our communities and our residents. For instance, by requiring a much greater supply of 45-day work placements and apprenticeships for young people. I take very seriously the findings of the recent report by Alan Milburn. We need a complete rethink of how we support the next generation to succeed, and it has to start with the education system. The days of a school system configured entirely around the university route will be brought to an end. University is great for those who want it, but when are we going to focus on the life chances of those kids who want something different? When? The country hasn't done that for a long, long time. People have argued over many years for an education system based on parity between academic and technical, and that is what we will build, giving every young person growing up here a clear path into a re-industrialised Britain. Where young people need mental health support, it should be provided as part of in-work support. And we will answer the call from the mayors, and particularly the Mayor of the North East, for devolution of employment support and changing the way we support and sustain people in employment, working much more through our community and voluntary sector at a grassroots level, working with organisations people trust to help them, rather than going to places that they fear. This is the difference that the mayors can make, and in doing that, we will reduce the welfare bill in a way that is fair and lasting and helps people move forward. Another way to do that is by repairing the public housing stock. Britain has lost almost 1.5 million council homes since the 1980s, and around the same number of people are now on housing waiting lists and have been there for a very long time. As a result, the country is in a housing trap. We are forced to chase rents in the private rented sector through the benefit system. When governments try to control these costs by freezing local housing allowance, it makes families homeless and places unfunded pressures on councils when they have to pay for temporary accommodation. Britain's housing crisis is having a ruinous impact on its public finances. So, working with local areas, Number 10 North will oversee the biggest council house building programme since the post-war period. We will use public land, vacant public land, to reduce costs. Let me just take you back to when I grew up here in the 1970s, and Steve Rotherham and I have written about this in a certain book. But when we were growing up here, amongst the friends we had at school, there were two things that were the foundations of working class aspiration. A council home, a secure home that was the foundation for everything, and then good technical education. And those things have been taken away in the decades since. So no wonder so many young people struggle to make it work and then don't make it work. Don't blame them. Blame ourselves. We haven't been giving people this stability, this ability to get on in life. And it's time we did and brought back working class aspiration, the chance of somebody growing up here to be everything that they can be. And that's what we will do. And also make this a city where no one has to leave to get on in life, or any of the other cities represented here today. That's what this new era is going to be all about a sense of hope, of possibility, that things are achievable that you might not have thought were before. And having this focus on council homes again and building them in all parts of the country, it will represent a decisive shift to a more preventative, productive state, adopting a national housing first philosophy as has been pioneered so successfully in Finland. If you don't give people a good home, what chance have they got of having a good life? What chance of making the health service sustainable if people are not living in good accommodation or getting a good education for kids? Everything starts with a good home, and this country finally has to put that at the top of its priority list. Through this new approach, we will bring higher density residential development to our towns, and Number 10 North will be able to support all places to turn around those towns, their high streets and the local centres, increasing footfall on the high street and protecting more green spaces from development. To reinforce that, we will reform business rates to support pubs and high street businesses, businesses that bring social benefits to communities. And let me finish by saying this. Rather than being a marker of decline, shouldn't we make our high streets the new symbol of Britain's renaissance? Ours is a 10-year mission to raise people's living standards. I know people can't wait forever for change. I heard on doorsteps in Makerfield how people need a bit extra now to help with rising costs. I will do my very best to deliver it, and whilst not taking risks with the public finances, will seek to give Britain some breathing space as soon as I can. People need to be able to look forward to a night out or a holiday with the kids. People need hope. This brings me back to where I started and the stories told in this building of how ordinary people, right back to Peterloo 200 years ago here, changed a British state not built with them in mind. Our modern challenge is exactly the same. An economy which, from the mid-1980s onwards, has not been built with them in mind and instead has handed more to those who already have most and left people overpaying for the basics. If people in 1844 could form the cooperative movement in Rochdale to lower the price of food, then why can't we act now with similar courage to make life better? Imagine what things could be like if we succeed. Imagine what it would feel like to live in a country wired to work for ordinary people rather than against them. Imagine if all local areas could build homes people can afford to the point where they could guarantee one for everyone. Imagine if we could bring down the cost of energy for people and businesses and the good things that would come from that. Imagine good growth in every postcode and hope in every heart. I'll say it again. Imagine good growth in every postcode and hope in every heart. Well, imagine no more. Let's make it happen.
Right, well, we ended up taking the whole of that speech. Let's face it, he's a damn sight better speaker, Andy Burnham, than Keir Starmer. I'd have lasted about 5 minutes with Keir Starmer delivering the exact same speech. A lot of promise, a lot of hope, lots of applause, always a few laughs. He's very personable, very friendly. But was there any actual substance there? Well, I'll get the thoughts of Claire Pearson just for a moment. I want to hear from you on 0344 499 1000. First up, though, waiting very patiently on the line. Is Baroness Claire Fawkes, the independent peer, of course, and director of the Academy of Ideas. Claire, I could see you on the monitor through my screen that you were sitting there waiting and listening. I mean, look, he can deliver a speech well. He's got his black T-shirt on. He starts with a nice little joke. And it's like there's a lot of talk. It was kind of very, hopey-changey, wasn't it? Lots of hope, lots of change. Was there enough substance in there for you, though?
So I completely credit him, as you say, with a good narrative. But you do have to peel it back. One thing I thought was ironic was he talked about the Peterloo martyrs at the massacre. One of the things they were objecting to was rotten boroughs, in which a very small number of the electorate were able to control what happens in Parliament. And I think this is Andy Burnham, who hasn't even given his maiden speech in Parliament declaring his 10-year plan and assuming control of the country. So, there's a fair amount of rotten borough stuff going on now, even though his romantic, allusion to those wonderful people who fought in the past for us hundreds of years ago in Manchester at Peterloo deserve credit. I'm not sure that he can take
any credit for that.
He is the inheritor of.
No, indeed. Look, there's a lot of good vibes, and again, it's about optimism. And I think people do need hope. They do need optimism. And I do think, we people have, particularly outside London, but particularly in the North Midlands, have been largely forgotten. There's a lot to say, and he's got a lot to say about that. But there wasn't that much specific. I mean, one of the things that, again, a lot of that stuff was actually previewed, given briefings in advance. But this idea of a number 10 of the North, big cheers for that. Number 10 extended operation. Number 10 North will be the nerve centre of a rewired Britain. I mean, let's be honest, that's just claptrap, isn't it?
About it is, I want this to succeed.
Yes.
I'm like everyone else. I'm fed up, feeling demoralised by politics. But the difficulty is that when he says this will create jobs throughout the North, you think, yes, it'll, as he's pointed out, they're going to be building so many Westminster outlets that there's going to be loads of public sector jobs for people who work for the administration. The idea that what we need is somewhere close to us in order to administer the same kind of politics doesn't work for me. Second thing is that he's outsourcing the crisis of welfare to local mayors. That's what he's saying. He's saying, well, all of these problems with NEETs, references Alan Milburn's very important report on young people not in education and training. But we know that the deeper problem is that young people are, for example, being signed off from work because they have mental health problems, a very broad definition of mental health. Cracking down on the welfare problem and the growth of it is not part of his plan. It's phoning round and getting people on apprenticeships. Now, that's great stuff, right?
1,000 in the whole of Manchester. I mean, 1,000's better than none, but...
It's also the case that welfare dependency went up under Burnham in Manchester.
Yeah, and there were very little action to deal with it.
Right? So you've got that going on. The other thing is, I completely agree with him, of course, about the way that he described our dependence on sending people to universities in order to work. Then he says, the important thing is that we're dependent on university in order to build all of this good growth. He talks about how universities linking up, well, they're all in financial crisis. Lots of them are sacking lots of people. They're going to be delighted he's put them at the centre of this good growth. But guess what they're going to need? Students. So a lot of these things were just completely contradictory in relation to how
a lot of them will disappear. But it was interesting also. I find it fascinating, this whole idea that, things have gone badly wrong because everything's so centralised. And we are one of the most centralised states in the Western world. Again, part of that's to do with our history as a nation. But this idea that decisions are made better when they're made locally by, local people, representatives of local people. And yet, at the same time, this is a man who, in his lifetime, would like to rejoin the EU, where to have decisions made about Britain's laws and borders to be made by people in Brussels. I've always found this absolutely fascinating. They can hold these two ideas in their head. Definitely better if decisions in Manchester or Liverpool are made by people in Manchester and Liverpool, but not decisions for Britain made in Brussels.
I agree. I completely agree, of course, as a Brexiteer. But I also want to point out that I'm from Wales. Well, Welsh devolution run by Labour.
How's that work?
For decades. How did that work out?
Yeah.
I mean, schooling collapsed. The NHS is absolutely in dire state. It's so bad that even Plaid Cymru managed to win an election, right? That's how bad it was, right? So that was argued for as local decisions made closer to the people of Wales, and it didn't work. Now, devolution is not a new idea. And my main objection is this outsourcing of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, what really worries me is him saying, we won't make the decisions, we'll hand it over to local politicians to make the decisions. Now, it's also interesting, by the way, that he was full of kumbaya, love for all, we're all going to work collaboratively together.
Yeah.
That's good to hear, because it will be interesting to see, for example, how that works in terms of councils that are run by, I don't know, reform. Is there going to be an outpouring of love and collaboration there? Yeah. If so, good, I'll take him at his word. But I don't see it myself. It seemed to me that this was a brilliantly constructed rhetorical speech containing all the things that I want to believe to be true, but which the hard decisions that he, if he is going to be Prime Minister, yet to be decided, not by the British people, but by himself and his cohort in the Labour Party. Yeah. If he's the Prime Minister, he's basically saying, I'm going to hand all the power over to the local mayor over there, the local county council over there, whatever. And they then get the power to do it. And that's very dangerous. It can, of course, lead to some insight as to local issues, but it also can lead to him saying, nothing to do with me, mate. What can I do about it? Yeah. And I don't think it seems courageous in terms of taking on what I consider to be the big issues of our time.
Yeah, and indeed, if you think that, you know, central government, I mean, you were saying early on, you know, central government hasn't worked, Westminster hasn't, our politics is broken, it hasn't been working for the country. But, you know, if you think people in Westminster are useless, how useless do you think your local council is? I mean, probably a damn sight more useless. I thought it was really interesting. He's going, I mean, again, a lot of stuff that people will like to hear after years of division. It's always fascinating, by the way. The people who are most concerned about division are the ones who stoked that division by, after the Brexit referendum, decided to just basically try and completely stop that from being enacted. I mean, it is utterly fascinating. They're the ones who are unhappy about it. But talking about the circuit breaker that Britain needs, says no more of the same. The biggest change in our lifetimes in the way the country is run, he said, a more collaborative approach. Now, he's talked about getting rid of, having unity, having an inclusive team, not using the whip system in Westminster, where basically if you're punished if you don't vote with the government to intimidate. I mean, well, good luck with that, but how are you going to get anything through? But he says the country spends too much time arguing and not enough time doing. Now, that all sounds lovely, but he said Westminster's set up for division and things, and conflict. Yeah, because you're having a division between how you think the country should be run, what your values are, what your aims are, what your methods are, even if you've got the same aims to get there. Like, yeah, we all want growth. OK, how do you think you're going to get growth? By definition, there are going to be divisions and conflict between those who think you do this and those who think you do that. I mean, this idea, again, it all sounds nice and kumbaya, doesn't it?
It does, but I was actually worried about it, because I actually think that healthy political debate and discussion is necessary in order for us to have a battle about which is the best way forward. And you could see that there was already a setup that anyone who objects to him will be seen as a kind of naysayer, negative. Undoubtedly, he might not use the labels far right, but it will be, the way that Starmer would drop that in. But what you would have here is anyone who says, actually, Andy, I disagree with you, say, oh, so you don't want good growth for local people in the area. You're one of the destructive people who are trying to stop us growing. So that worries me. The other thing that worries me is that he said that contracts will be given, I think, if you exhibit positive social value or,
what the hell is that? Yeah.
What the hell is that? And good growth. I mean, at this stage, I want growth. I don't want it to have to be morally virtuous on its way. I worry that then what they'll do is they'll give contracts out to companies that box tick their way through some, I don't know, environmental, social targets or net zero targets or equality, diversity, inclusion targets. They'll be the good contractors and they'll deliver good growth because on the right side of history. Yeah. And what that means is they're putting forward barriers to actually what needs to be freed up, which is the people need to be free in order to, develop and invest and so on.
Yeah.
I genuinely am scared as well about the amount of, he says that it's almost as though he's giving up control to local areas, but there's a huge amount of prescription in what he's described.
Here's your money, but this is what you're going to do. Baroness Claire Fox, we'll have to leave it there. There's so much to talk about in the speech. Again, not much detail, but a lot of aims. There'll be a lot more coverage of that. Independent peer, Director of the Academy of Ideas, thank you so much for joining us. Quick thoughts from Claire Pearsall. We were just sort of, facial expressions to each other through that speech. There's no doubt, again, he's a good communicator, good speaker. He can make a good joke. It's much easier to listen to than... it's not that sort of talking down thing. But again, a lot of the stuff that sounds all nicey is actually, as Claire Fox says, very prescriptive.
It is. So he is Mr. Cliche. He is a good communicator, but we have got ourselves a hard left person. Make no mistake about it. He's hiding it at the moment, but he is going to tell us how much money we're going to earn, how much money we can spend, and where it's going to be spent.
Well, he was saying a more collaborative approach, and that's bringing in the private sector as well. Which he's done in Manchester. Handing out, was it a £400 million contract to a property developer who basically was supposed to provide loads of affordable homes, and I think he provided just a very, very small number. But he did talk about utilities, making them more affordable for essentials, reindustrialisation. Again, can't do that with net zero.
No.
And regeneration. Again, a load of it sounds great. But again, it's mum and apple pie, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it's going to be a redistribution of finances as well. This number 10 North idea, it sounds very nice as a catchy headline.
That got one of the biggest cheers for a load of people in that room. I'm thinking of very much looking forward to a nicely highly paid job. I'll tell you what's going to happen in Manchester right now. Your house price is going to go up, more unaffordable for your youngsters to get on the housing ladder because of those Londoners who are going to move north to do those jobs.
No school places either.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happens. 12:23 is the time. Love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take your calls in the next half hour. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Up next, going to be talking to former head teacher, Tim Clark, about this new report from Estelle Morris looking into, why is it that white working class kids, yet another report saying this, do so badly and are failed by our schools? Does that all tie in with what Andy Burnham wants to do? That's up next. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. TalkSport have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. Well, we lost about half an hour of the show to listening to Andy Burnham's speech, but I think it was very interesting. This is how he wants to portray himself to the country. This is what he's saying is going to be as Prime Minister if he becomes Prime Minister, as many expect on the 20th of July. So your response to that, we'll get to those very, very soon. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Right now, though, let's talk about something that's very much related to this, because he did actually talk about the Andy Burnham report into NEETs, those youngsters not in education, employment or training. Well, one of the group's most likely to be in that situation are white working class kids, failed by schools. A brand new independent inquiry, yet another one. Did we really need another one? This is co-authored by Baroness Estelle Morris. She, of course, was a comprehensive school education secretary. In fact, the first one I think we've ever had in this country, which is quite telling, is it not? And she's co-authored this report and says we need once-in-a-generation reforms to fix an education system that she says is not serving the interests of white working-class children. Well, let's talk about this with former head teacher Tim Clark. A very good afternoon to you, Tim.
Afternoon, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, this report was set up last year. Like, why are these kids in the lowest performing, huge demographic in the school system in England? First of all, I mean, did we need another report? Because we know this already, and we know why, don't we?
Absolutely. I mean, I first became a head over a quarter of a century ago, and this was an issue then. Yeah. You look at exam data, white working class kids, particularly boys, come either at the bottom or near the bottom. You look at attendance data, white working class kids are near or at the bottom. You look at exclusion rates, suspension rates for poor behaviour, and white working class kids are either at or near the top of that list. So this is nothing new. There are simple solutions to it, but it needs action. And again, a bit like the conversation you've just been having, it needs action, not lip service paid to it.
Absolutely. I mean, the key thing is, and we must talk about averages, aren't we? There'll be plenty of white working class kids who do very well, and there'll be many kids with other backgrounds. But so much of this, let's face it, it's got sod all to do with the colour of anyone's skin, whether a kid does well or not. It's nearly always down to your social class, the economic situation you're born into, parental aspiration and culture at home. I mean, absolutely nothing to do with colour whatsoever. So why do we focus on that?
Well, that's the society in which we live, isn't it? I mean, there have been plenty of a great deal of research into why, say, Caribbean boys are excluded or why they do badly at school. And there's been far less research into why white working class kids underperform. But
actually, it's largely the same reason. Broken families, poor households.
Well, interesting. Yes, absolutely. I mean, interestingly, I've just done some work with a charity called Kindred Squared, which is an early years charity. And they have shown that by the age of 22 months, so not even 2 years old, the educational trajectory of most young kids is already set. You talk to any nursery teacher, you talk to any infant school teacher, and by the time kids start schooling at 5, the factors that lead to underachievement at GCSE, be they socioeconomic, be they cognitive, be they special needs, they are there. The whole of our education system is about catch-up. If we really, really want to make a difference, it has to be in those early years.
And that's it. And again, there's something interesting. The Princess of Wales has been focusing on very aware. Anyone who's paying attention. That's why Sure Start was rated again, although largely used by middle-class parents for a bit of childcare, weren't they? But this is the thing. Talking to your child, good routine, good nutrition. I know that doesn't mean expensive fruit and vegetables and food. No. It just means basically not living on orange squash and chips, as you know. A lot of these things, structure in the family, all of these things. Working parents, having parents who actually do, well, at least one who actually has a job. Showing that so many of these things. I mean, the thing is, when people talk about inequality, a lot of the inequality is down to a lot of parents doing the right thing and then being told, oh, isn't it terrible? Your child's got advantages. Well, I'm so sorry I was reading to my child from the age of 6 months. I'm really sorry that I didn't give my kid chips and think it was a food. I'm really sorry we did bedtimes. I'm really sorry, But, a lot of parents are doing the right thing. A lot of parents aren't doing the right thing. 1 in 10 parents in a survey over the weekend have said that they don't even think that their child's behaviour is their job. That's the school's job. Yeah. Those will account for a lot of those kids, won't they? Just totally not doing their job.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think this is what I said at the start about the government mustn't pay lip service to it. Yeah. So, for example, you talked about food. Now, the current government has this policy of breakfast clubs. Now, having been the head of a school on a deprived estate in East London, I totally support breakfast clubs. But so far, they're only, after having been in power for 2 years and had 14 years in opposition to think about it, there are currently about 300,000 kids benefiting from breakfast clubs. There are 5 million kids in primary schools, and the latest data from the DFE, this is not from some suspect organisation, but from the DFE itself, less than half of the kids receiving free breakfast are not deemed disadvantaged. So we are actually giving free breakfast to kids who could have a perfectly good breakfast at home.
And again, it's the job of parents. And again, one of the reasons why their kids aren't getting breakfast is no one's up because everyone's got a hangover, or they're on their drugs, or aren't at home. Or no, in a lot of cases, single mums who've already had to go out to work. But I mean, you see this, but frankly, I see a lot of this in middle-class families who just don't get up on time to feed their kids.
And again, this is where I think this report and the government has missed the point, as have several recent governments. I'm not just aiming this at the current government, but there's been this focus on childcare. Now, childcare is important because, and what it was really intended to do was to allow parents, particularly mums, to go back to work. And that is a perfectly laudable aim. But there is a difference between childcare, just looking after a kid, and proper early years education. Now, if you look at Estonia, for example, now, okay, smaller country, much smaller population, but it has one of the highest performing education systems in Europe. In Estonia, to teach in a nursery, you have to be a graduate. There is a formal curriculum. All right, so it's primarily based on play and experience, but there is a formal experience. It's not childcare. It's actually teaching kids from an early age.
It's
and
not babysitting. Just you're alive in the room at the end of the day, and that'll do. And that is definitely a very big issue in some of our nurseries. I mean, it's just very depressing though, because we know that the reason why some kids, particularly schools in London, a lot of them have been doing very, very well, even with areas where you've got kids from poorer backgrounds. And a lot of that has been actually from aspirant immigrant families. And then you look at things like the Michaela School with the brilliant Catherine Burball saying, taking a load of kids from free school meals, from immigrant families, many of whom don't even speak English, not even just as their first language, they barely speak English at all. And she's taking these kids and she is turning their lives around.
Absolutely.
It's doable, but it takes a strong school system.
It does, and I think that you've touched on, I think, a really important point there. There's been a lot said about changing the curriculum, and I totally endorse that. At the moment, this one-size-fits-all system just sees tens of thousands of kids leaving school as failures. And that's not an argument in favour of prizes for all. I mean, my line as a head was I didn't care if kids did classics or plumbing on the condition we turned out the best classicists and the best plumbers. It's about standards. But there is a very, very big but. What we must not assume is that vocational courses, practical courses, are for working class kids.
Absolutely.
They are for less academic kids, and that is not the same as working class kids.
And it's often a very different kind of intelligence. I've met plenty of people with Oxbridge degrees who I wouldn't trust to even change a light bulb, I've got to be honest with you. Tim Clark, we'll have to leave it there. Former head teacher, really appreciate that. 12:35 is the time. Up next, do stay tuned. I think you're going to want to. Dr. Helen Webberley is here, live in the studio. She's the founder of Gender GP. She runs a business selling puberty blockers to children in this country. That's coming up next. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 12:37 is the time. Claire Pistol is still with me. She's a former Conservative government advisor. And I'd like to say we're now joined by the founder of Gender GP, Dr. Helen Webley, live in the studio. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
My pleasure.
Always grateful for that. I wanted to talk to you. You've been quite busy on social media. You've responded to a few of the posts that I've made on issues related to trans issues, and in particular, we had the publication of a draft bill last week by the Equalities Minister Olivia Bailey about a draft bill to ban conversion therapy, not just gay conversion but also trans conversion therapy. And basically it could mean, many are warning, the campaign is warning, that parents, teachers, therapists, doctors could risk up to 5 years behind bars if they try to talk children out of irreversible trans treatments, including puberty blockers. And I want to talk to you because you run a business selling puberty blockers to children.
Well, I don't run a business selling puberty blockers to children, so I think we just need to clear that up.
What do you do then?
Children don't need puberty blockers. Adolescents have puberty blockers once they've started puberty. So if we just clear that language up, because that's
adolescents are...
Adolescents are young people who have started puberty.
Adolescents
so
under 18?
Teenagers.
Under 18. So children.
Yeah.
Well, it's a technical term, children.
For the medical term, children is a very emotive term. So children don't need puberty blockers. And let me just be clear, I don't sell puberty blockers to children. They're given for free. Because actually young people in this country can't access puberty blockers. So just to clear that up, I don't sell puberty blockers to children. But
the puberty blockers that were supplied by your company, Gender GP, are given out for free. It's a lovely, warm, cuddly, fuzzy charity. Is that the case? I mean, it's agreed. You said they're not given. You said that you don't sell them. You run a business. You founded a business called Gender GP that supplies these drugs to under 18s, children. That's what I call under 18s, children.
Okay, well, listen, you've laid it out that I am the supplier and seller of puberty blockers to children.
Would you give them for free or not? Do you not give them to under 18s, or do you give them for free? Those are two simple questions. You can't answer those questions. So you do sell them.
I've just clarified it several times. I don't sell puberty blockers.
So they're given to them for free.
The doctors...
To under 18s.
You want me to answer or you don't want me to answer?
I'm trying to clarify your answer.
And I'm clarifying with you that you introduced me to the world as somebody who runs a business selling puberty blockers to children. And I'm clarifying to you that that's not the case.
You're no longer involved in the business.
So did you want to move on to the conversion?
Yes, I'd love to, but I don't think if we are clear about this. But yeah, you're right. Let's move on. This new law, do you think it's right that a parent... I've got friends who've gone through this, that a therapist who is dealing with a troubled child, a confused child, a child who may be autistic, or may have, maybe, as we know from the Cass report, may be gay and uncomfortable about being gay, or in a family where perhaps one of the parents disapproves of homosexuality or for some reason. Do you think that a parent or a therapist trying to talk that child out from doing something like taking puberty blockers drastically altering their body, that they should face up to 5 years behind bars?
Your language is so emotive, though, isn't it? Because
quite an emotive
actually, you started by saying that the draft bill was about banning conversion therapy for gay children or transgender children, and that is absolutely right, because conversion therapy is a form of therapy which prefers the outcome for that gay child not to be gay or that transgender child not to be transgender, and that's not good therapy. I mean, preferring an outcome that denies somebody's true identity is not helpful to anybody.
Well, I mean, completely. I don't think there is actually been a big issue in this country with even gay conversion therapy. That's a big thing in America.
Well, you may not know, but there are plenty of LGBT people who have been through conversion therapy, whether that's full-on elastic bands, vomiting, prayers and what have you, or whether it's subliminal preference that the better outcome, which
would
I
be
think
that
is
you
what
were not. Yes, okay. I mean, I wouldn't be if it was my daughter and she said she was trans. I wouldn't have a subliminal view on this. I'd have a very clear view on this.
Then I feel sorry for your daughter. Then, if your daughter was trans.
Yeah, well, I would feel sorry. I think one should show nothing but kindness and respect and sympathy to people who do believe this. So
sympathy? Why sympathy? Because sympathy. We should be embracing queerness. We should be embracing
well,
LGBT.
let's not use the term queerness. I'm afraid. I mean, I'm from a generation where that was used as a term of abuse against gay people, so I choose not to use that word ever. I don't know what that means. Queerness, trans, these are very different things. So I want to clarify. Do you believe that there are... Because I don't believe there's any such thing as a trans kid, right? So do you believe that there are children...
So you don't think that the Equality
let me ask a question.
No, because I can't just let you say I don't believe that
I can say
on.
yes.
Yeah, but I can interrupt.
OK, yes.
So you don't believe there's anything such thing as a trans child. So the
no,
Equality...
I know there isn't.
OK, you know there isn't. Yeah. But the Equality Act actually has a protected characteristic, which is somebody who undergoes gender reassignment.
That doesn't mean they are trans. No.
It doesn't... So you're basically saying...
No, there is a protected characteristic. It doesn't mean that they actually are... trans. That's what I want to ask you specifically. Do you believe that there are children who are born in the wrong body?
Born in the wrong body? Again, it's just... Julia, you need to really watch your language. This is such
don't tell me what language to use. That's not going to go down well for you, Helen.
I just did. I just did. Transgender children exist. There are
children who believe that they're born in the wrong body exist.
I didn't say they're born in the wrong body because it's such an
offensive thing to say. That's why I asked you that question. What's the motive? That's
we were
what
talking about the Equality
That's what a lot of children say. That they're born in the wrong body.
No, they don't. People
well, that's
like
what we're told by
that's
what trans activists constantly say. People feel they're born in the wrong body.
Well, then you need to watch me a little bit more on social media.
I'm good. I won't need to do that.
OK.
OK, so you don't think that phrase is... You don't think that is
Nobody's
meaningful?
born in the wrong body. What an offensive thing to say.
You accept that. OK, so no, I was going to say, you're a doctor by training. So that's basic biology. So what is it that a trans child believes or is, in your view, that is different from any other child? If you've got a little boy or a little girl who says, I believe I'm trans, I believe that I am a girl or a boy, the opposite from what they have been, I don't believe in assigned at birth, for what they are, what is it that's different about them?
Well, the belief is not their belief. Their understanding is of who they are. It's your belief. You believe by looking down there that is a little boy, and what you're doing...
I believe that someone with a penis is a boy.
Yeah.
And I'm mistaken in that.
Would you like me to finish or not?
Just clarify.
OK. So you believe by looking at a penis that child is a boy.
Yes, I do.
But that child may well be saying to you, you've got it wrong. Your belief is wrong. Actually, inside my soul, inside my heart, inside my brain, I'm a girl. And people like you who deny that do an awful lot of harm. And people like you who put that out there on big social media channels do ever such a lot of harm to those people who are transgender. And that's difficult.
Right. If my child said to me, I'm Spider-Man, should I affirm that as well?
Do you not think I've not been asked that before?
Well, exactly.
Spider-Man is not an identity.
Spider-Man's not a thing.
Spider-Man is a fictional character from the television of a bloke who climbs up walls.
But a child could honestly believe that they are Spider-Man.
It's not a belief.
It's not a belief.
Remember we explained that a minute ago. It's your belief that
they are talking factually, and the rest of the world
you're denying,
and the whole of history. We've all been
identity.
wrong about biological sex. And it's not really a thing. It's entirely something that you know in your own heart. Is that what you're saying?
Well, how do you know what you are? Do you look in the mirror, or is it that you just
I've known all my life. I was given female on my birth certificate because I haven't got a penis, I've got a vagina. I've got pregnant and given birth to a baby. I think the evidence is very, very, very clear that I'm a woman. I've never questioned that. The vast majority of people don't question it. And until very recently, before this started being pushed as a political agenda, very few children question it. Now, here's the thing.
Yes, they did, if I may. And actually, we understand it so well that it isn't in our UK law. And do you think that your womanhood is dictated because somebody else put female on and because somebody else got you pregnant, and then that makes you a woman? I don't think
because I am female because I am female.
Yes, and that's
because I actually am.
Exactly.
And I can think that I'm
You've got it.
I can think that I'm a German Shepherd dog if I want, but it doesn't mean that I am.
German Shepherd is a dog. We're talking about human identities here. Spider-Man climbs up buildings. Dogs are a different species.
You believe that it's wrong. So if a child says, whether it's a patient, whether it's a child to their parents, says, I know I've not got a penis, but I believe I am a boy, that should be affirmed. That is clear to me. It's gender dysphoria. It's a mental health issue. We know from the cash review.
Are you a mental health specialist? Is that your excuse me? It's classified. No, I'm not letting you get away with that because
you can at the end. Let me quote.
There will be transgender people listening to this,
and they can listen to it.
And listen to you saying that they have a mental illness.
Cash review was carried out by one of the leading paediatricians in the country. It's been widely accepted
and widely discredited.
It has not been remotely discredited. That is simply untrue. The cash review made it very clear, and this was something that was widely available as evidenced already, that the vast majority of young people who not just attended the Tavistock Clinic in London, but also other transgender treatments, that they are children who have largely, they're either autistic, they're gay children, they have other issues, lots of other mental health issues, depression, anxiety, some have been abused, lots of other issues. Is it appropriate to affirm, in your word, their mistaken view, in my view, that they are, whether we use the phrase born in the wrong body, or that they are the different gender from what has been assigned at birth, and to give them a treatment, not just say, yes, you can change your name to Jane or John or the other way around, but to give them a treatment which prevents the normal, natural, timely development of their bodies?
Well, I just want to say to all the transgender people who are watching this show that you don't have a mental illness. And what I would like to say...
Mental health problem.
OK. I'd like to say to all of the people who listen to this, are listening to this show, all transgender people, that just because you are transgender does not mean that you have a mental health problem. But I would also like to say that attitudes such as yours cause mental health problems in people who are simply trying to live their life.
And you're stopping people living their lives.
And you said I was going to have a go? And your description there, listing off all of those attributes of a transgender person, denies them their identity and denies them their right to live peacefully.
How does it deny them their identity?
Country. By listing, it must be sexual abuse, it must be autism.
No, I didn't say it must be. The biggest review carried out by a leading paediatrician in this country looked into this and repeated evidence is very, very clear again and again that actually the vast majority of children who appear at clinics, who claim to believe that they were born in the wrong body, or whatever phrase we want to use, have actually got other issues, which perhaps more of a bigger explanation.
Okay,
and
so
the vast majority of the children who, if they're left to their own devices, either, quote, grow out of this, go and live a perfectly happy, healthy life as gay men or lesbian women. And I'm going to say, how can you justify giving drugs to change children's bodies, and they are children for under 18, especially when we know that puberty blockers have not been used by the Tavistock and elsewhere as a way of a pause. We're talking a pause to have a think, whereas in fact more than 90% of the children who are given these drugs, or the young people given these drugs, go on to take hormones to actually, try and sex change hormones, and leaving them often infertile. You're very medically aware here, and you're talking absolute rubbish. I'm talking about really correct me.
And I'd like to say to all the parents of transgender children who listen to your show and hopefully don't watch your stuff on social media, that their children are not a problem. Their children are absolutely right to live happily and
I'm not asking. I don't want anyone not to live happily.
And
can you address my point?
And actually, no, they are not gay. If your child is trans, your child is trans. Nothing to do with their sexuality. And no, they are not all.
So the report was wrong.
And no, they are not all victims of sexual abuse.
I didn't say that. I never said that. I didn't say that. I didn't. I literally didn't. You're just making it up. No, I didn't.
You haven't mentioned those words today.
No, I didn't say they're not all. I didn't say they were all victims of sexual abuse. One of the things that Cass reviews... I said that the majority are blah, 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 and one of the things that was listed was victims of sexual abuse.
And the only one you don't list is true transgender children.
What does true transgender children mean?
It means that somebody else put female on their birth certificate.
And they're not.
And they're not. Exactly.
What's the youngest age that your business that you founded, along with your husband, who I believe has been struck off as a GP, you're no longer registered, but you are, you're a doctor. You no longer have a license to practice. That was your choice in this country. What's the youngest age at which puberty blockers have been given to an under 18 child, as I'm going to use that word, by your company, Gender GP?
The appropriate time to give puberty blockers is when puberty starts.
So what's the youngest age?
The youngest age for puberty blockers, I mean, some children at the age of 3 or 4 can start puberty, and we give them puberty blockers.
That's different. That's a medical treatment.
Oh, that's a medical treatment.
That's a medical treatment for precocious puberty.
Comes back in again with now medical treatment.
That is literally what that is for.
You need to be really careful of your advice.
That's not for a trans child.
Oh, I see. That's for proper
Are you
needs.
under the illusion? Are you under the illusion that people who don't have a medical degree are incapable of reading what medical experts say?
Well, interpreted.
You think I've wrongly interpreted? So when children are given puberty blockers for precocious puberty at an inappropriate time to slow their body down, to enable them to develop naturally, that is a medical treatment as opposed to a preferential treatment from a child who believes that they are trans. You understand the difference?
You're so cruel.
I'm cruel now. OK. Now, I'm only going to have to break because they're shouting at me. I do need to break. I know I want to take questions from you. I have a feeling you want me to carry on with this conversation. We will take double the questions tomorrow and the calls from you tomorrow. We'll try and slip in some at the end. But let's take a very quick break. And Helen, if you'd be willing to stay in the studio just for a couple more moments. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Dr. Helen Webley, founder of Gender GP, up next. This is Talk.
You've got to be single-minded about your plan. You've got to follow through and not back down. The geography helps countries like Australia, but also the UK. I mean, across Europe, you know, they look the other way. I think unintentionally, all those years ago, one regulation changes in a province in Germany, and all of a sudden you get a wave of mass migration. The thing about immigration is this: if you get it wrong, the consequences are generational.
UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. I'm afraid we're not getting to calls. You're all on the board and you're absolutely furious with me, and I'm so sorry. I'm going to do double the calls tomorrow. I absolutely promise. And you can come back on lots of things that we could be talking about, like Andy Burnham's speech. But and we're going to Ian Collins is going to be starting at 1. But I do want to get back to my conversation with the founder of Gender GP. That's Dr. Helen Webley, who's live in the studio with me. Helen, I just asked you before we went to break. I want to ask you, what is the youngest age that you have given your company, Gender GP, has given, sold? I mean, I don't think you give them away for free. Puberty blockers. You said youngest could be age 3. What is the youngest age, as far as you're aware, from the company you founded?
Well, we've been struggling with the terminology. The terminology is that doctors prescribe puberty blockers for young people who need them. So
I'm asking your company.
Yes, and the doctors will prescribe puberty blockers for children who've gone into puberty, whether that's precocious puberty or whether that's for transgender.
What's the youngest age a child that hasn't gone into precocious puberty?
When puberty starts, so puberty starts in people for trans reasons. Oof.
No, I'm just saying. For the reason they want them.
Transgender young people entering puberty.
What age?
So people with ovaries can enter puberty as early as 7.
Why can't you just answer the question? What age?
We didn't even say 7, no?
No, but you're talking about precocious puberty.
No, I'm not.
So you're saying
puberty can start as young as 7, 8, 9.
Yes.
Okay?
So you're saying that your company has given puberty blockers to children as young as...
Prescribe.
I didn't ask about doctors. I asked about your company.
But a company can't sell
the
or give.
people working for the company that you're the founder of.
The doctors.
The doctors, yeah.
Working
What's
with
the
gender
youngest
GP.
age they've
I
given
just
them to?
told you,
7 years
8,
old.
9, 10, whenever puberty starts.
Okay, and is that for trans, because the
For
children,
transgendered
that's for
people,
7 years old. And your company has been criticised by a senior judge, it wasn't a party to this particular court case, for not informing young patients about the risks of things like the train they're getting onto the train tracks. Sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm going to be, quoting some of the risks there are: infertility, sexual dysfunction, bone density damage, brain developmental risk. Now, a lot of that comes from further down the line, but we know the evidence is clear. Don't have a medical degree, but the evidence is clear. Read the reports, see what the medical experts who do know say, that actually the vast majority of youngsters who start on these puberty blockers move on to cross-sex hormones, and that's what the reaction is. How can a young child, how can anyone under the age of 18, how can they make a decision about their future like that?
I think we have to give young people credit for understanding a lot of things in healthcare. So whether it's going in for a broken arm, whether it's going in for your adenoids, whether it's going in for grommets, whether it's going for puberty blockers, whether it's going for open heart surgery, you have to understand that parents and children make decisions.
But a
for
lot
medical
of that
care.
is medical
And
treatment for a problem.
And the problem is gender incongruence, gender dysphoria, the pubertal development.
Okay.
And the reason that we got into this discussion here today was because of this campaign.
You're wearing a T-shirt. Oh gosh, yes, proud of my stripes.
Yeah.
This is
And
the
actually,
Lush campaign, and it's got a tiger apparently celebrating having mastectomy scars, cutting off perfectly healthy breasts.
Proud of my scars, yeah. And actually,
it's
do you know
repulsive.
what? Yeah, but puberty
I hadn't registered that was what you were wearing. It literally makes me want to vomit.
Oh, would you like to... Can we have a bucket in here, please? But puberty blockers prevent this. So on the one hand, you're saying puberty blockers, you could give them to